Please be seated. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this year's council meeting. Can I ask everyone to note that the fire safety instruction on hearing the alarm, you should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance, and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phone and turn any other electronic device used to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is subject to internet webcast recording and where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, it is likely your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe on your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area in the main body of the council chamber and move to the upper gallery. If members are for any reason not present for the whole debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it is appropriate for you to vote on that item. I would also request that members ensure that they are familiar with procedural rules concerning points of order, personal explanation and points of information or clarification, which are set out on page 3 of the agenda, and remind them that the proposer of a motion may speak for 5 minutes to introduce the item, the seconder may speak for 3 minutes, which may be reserved, and other speakers for 3 minutes. The proposer has a further 5 minutes to finally sum up before the vote. Could I ask members to please refer to the page number and allow time for us to find it before speaking? I would also like to remind members of the Code of Conduct can be found in Part 5 of the Constitution, also the Protocol on Member-Staff Relations at Part 5.4. Please can members ensure that they conduct themselves in line with the principles outlined. Finally, please remain seated while speaking if it causes you difficulty to stand. Item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillor Wagland, Cloak and Naylor. Are there any others? Item 2, declarations of interest. I'd like to remind all members that you have been granted a dispensation under Section 33 of the Localism Act 2011 to discuss and debate items of the budget. Therefore, you will not need to declare any interest this evening relating to the budget. Are there any other further declarations to be made? Item 3, minutes of previous meeting. If you wish that I sign as correct record for the minutes of council meeting held on the 10th of December 2025, which begin on page 5 of the agenda. Item 4, 2026-27 MTFS to 2029-30. The report begins on page 3 of the agenda, supplement 1. Please note that Appendix L has been withdrawn and therefore not for consideration this evening. Mr. Dickinson, anything to add? Councillor Aspinall, will you move the recommendation, please? You have 15 minutes to speak in total.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will move the budget for this year. In doing so, I will speak for a few moments in highlighting parts of that budget, but then I will hand over to my friend and colleague, Councillor Kendall, who will be able to proceed and finish my presentation on my behalf. I have a lot of thanks to an extraordinary bunch of officers that we have here to help us produce this absolutely fantastic budget. Also, I'd like to thank all my chairs and members of the council for accumulating their vast discussions and knowledge at all the committee meetings that came together to get us to this point. I will make a very bold statement. In the 44 years that I've been here, on my 44th budget, there has never been a budget quite like this. Not as good as this. This is possibly the best budget I've ever seen anywhere for its completeness, its roundedness and attaching everything that we're here to do. I challenge leaders from anywhere in the country, in the UK, that can demonstrate a better budget than the one we're setting tonight. It's fantastic. We've hit debt repayment. When we took over this position of running this council, we had a debt of 200 million plus. We've now paid off and we're down to 192 million. 45 million this year, which equates to a massive £2 million that our residents do not have to pay back in interest immediately. This is a phenomenal state of affairs to be in. It's all about decisions taken at the right time, in the right circumstances, and taking advantage of the information given and acting upon it. Putting together policies that will benefit our town. Paying back this debt is incredible. Then we go to what we are able to roll out in our corporate policies, the priorities. We're going to be spending 25 million on refurbishing a Brentwood Centre that when we took over was an absolute sham of what it was before, a mere shadow of the jewel in the crown of Brentwood recreation that it should be. 25 million on that, 5 million on enhancing the public realm and various parts of the Baytree Centre, much overdue. And another 2 million on the depot to make it at least compliant to what is required for a modern 21st century depot. So a total bill of 32 million to be spent, 45 million paid back in debt, 32 million to be spent on facilities that will benefit this town and our residents and our visitors. Our car parks were in such a lamentable state when we took over. The machinery was broken, no proper lease or rental that included repair or replacement was in place. That all had to be taken away. That all had to be worked through. And now we have a decent modern facility that's a benefit to customers in our high street, our businesses that rely on that, our residents that use it, and everybody else. Not only has the APR cameras helped income coming into the council coffers through payment of car parking charges, but the police, with the police, we've been able to catch criminals, which is a major bonus. Anyway, the most important thing to me personally is the fact that after all the years, the 40-odd years since the last council home was built in this town, we are now going to be building this year, and in the process, the planning and provision in terms of contracts laid out, 145 new 100% council-owned homes. We're not the first to think about building homes. Of course, the previous administration wanted to build some new council homes. For one reason or another, it never got over the line. We now have done that. The skyline of Hutton has cranes on it, building new homes. We have homes in Hutton, homes in Pilgrim's Hatch, homes at Railway Station, homes in Ingatestone and St Francis Way, all being planned. Some of those, I can tell you, will be keys handed over to those very lucky, very fortunate residents of Brentwood who are currently in council housing, that will be offered the keys to those properties this year. That is something I'm extremely proud of, and I thank everybody that's been involved in getting to this point. I've probably missed out an awful lot. I'll get a chance to come back later after the debate, but obviously there's an awful lot of clean and green stuff I didn't mention, and I don't want to take away the opportunity of my deputy leader to be able to put that right. So thank you everyone, both sides of the chamber and all our officers, that's allowed us to get to this point. And I'm looking forward to watching millions, Kathy, to tell me which council in this country has put forward a better budget than this. Thank you.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to run through a few slides. It won't be, I promise, death by PowerPoint. I'm going to pick out some points I want to discuss, but I want to just set the scene for the budget so you've got a general overview in terms of what's been done. Just a few thanks from me, first of all, to David Dickinson and the finance team, Sarah, Sam, and the rest of the team. They've done a fantastic job in putting this together. Also to other officers for their input, and to the chairs and members of the Joint Administration. Okay, let's begin, as always, with the introduction. Funding for 26-27 has remained constrained, and all councils are facing tight financial conditions. Our overall funding has improved slightly for 26-27, but the government has issued a 3-year settlement, which is largely flat. We've got major changes to national funding beginning in 26-27, but we have got the extended producer responsibility, which is a valuable funding stream. The council has set a balanced budget across all 3 years of MTFS, but we all know local government reorganisation is coming down the line. 2028 onwards remains a key factor for all our future financial planning. So we do all have that in the back of our minds. In terms of general fund revenue, outturn 25-26, we're forecasting a surplus of 486,000. And that's supported by a strong Treasury performance. The service budgets show a small overspend, but in Q1, we transferred 3.75 million to the Borough Regeneration Reserve. On the 26-27 general budget, we're putting forward a balanced budget. Net expenditure for 26-27 is 12.73 million, and we've got significant Treasury gains from loan repayments and investment income. And I have to say on this, particularly to David Dixon and the team, what a brilliant job they've done in that respect. On council tax, we're proposing an increase of 2.99%, which works out at just over 12 pence a week increase for a Band D property. We've got growth of 1.244 million in priority areas, and we've also put just 1.08 into reserves as well as backup. On borrowing and investments, our council external borrowing has been reduced, as has been said by the leader. Our cash balances are currently high. We have cash balances of 70 million. And although the Public Works Loan Board's rates remain sensitive, our capital strategy is based around minimising new borrowing. The impact on the budget, well, the asset sale that we had of Childerditch has obviously made a major difference to this council. It was purchased under the original, the previous administration, and with unanimous support cross-party, and it was sold by the joint administration with most members supporting it. But it was definitely the right decision to make because it has put us in a strong financial position. In terms of debt and reserves, as has already been said, we've reduced our debt significantly in 25-26. Our debt has actually gone down from 225 million, 23-24, to 124 million in 25-26. At the same time, reserves are set to increase to 19.9 million. So it's a major turnaround in the council's finances. In terms of investments, we're funding those from reserves or they're self-funded. And a lot of work has gone in here with, the officers, with the directors, talking about what we need to deliver the council's priorities. You can have loads of priorities, loads of action plans, but you need the specialists on board to deliver them. And that's what we're bringing into the council. I'm not going to go through every single one, but you can see there's some of the key people we've got on board. I'm particularly pleased, a couple of things, locality grants. We're continuing locality grants. Many of you were able to give grants to your local community groups. We're keeping going with that next year. And that is a valuable source of income for a lot of our groups. I'm also very pleased to see high street enforcement. We're going to have 4 self-funded offices on our high streets on parking enforcement, which I think will make a major difference, not just in Brentwood, but around the borough. In terms of other investments, these are funded from base budget or agreed in 2025-26 ongoing service improvements. And again, these are across different departments. Senior planner and team leader. Anyone who's on the planning committee will know we need extra resources there. On street cleansing, we've got new staff coming in on the street cleansing side and CCTV and community safety. If you look at our budget consultation, those were 2 areas that residents picked out. Street cleansing, community safety, antisocial behaviour. It's built into the budget that we're taking action on those things. In terms of the general fund large projects, I know Councillor Barrett is going to enlarge on this, and the leader's spoken already, but major investment. The Brentwood Centre, the Bay Tree regeneration, and the depot upgrades. Very clear priorities from this administration in terms of how we want to take Brentwood forward. And from talking to people around the borough, the fact we're investing in the Brentwood Centre is going to make such a difference. That is the jewel in the crown, it's been referenced by the leader, but it needs upgrading, it needs refurbishment. In terms of the general fund, the capital programme, again, we're investing in key areas. Just over £1 million in cleaner, greener and safer. You see the breakdown there. We've also got extra funding on a place called Home, Disabled Facilities and Home Repair Assistance, and a leading local authority. As we move forward towards LGR, we're making major investment in IT. From talking to colleagues around the country, one of the big issues on local government reform has been IT. And I know Mr Stevenson's been working on that area. We're making sure our IT systems are up to scratch, particularly in the areas of cybersecurity, because we need to get that right. We're also investing money in parking, footpaths, cycleways and car park improvements. And that will give each and every one of you across the borough, across your wards, the opportunities to bid for some of that funding.
Councillor Kendall, can I just stop you a second? We're coming to the end of the 15 minutes. I hope councillors will allow us a little extra time to conclude the presentation. So thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the corporate priorities reserve, there is a significant surplus, as we've said before, from high interest rates being generated by cash currently being held. And what we're going to do is put £1 million of that corporate priorities reserve to be allocated in 26-27. Now, at the March Council meeting, we'll be looking at those different priorities. Now, all members across this chamber have an opportunity to put some input into what those priorities might be, okay? Everyone has a say, you're all representing different wards, you're representing your residents. Those can be considered. But hopefully what you're seeing is we're not going to do things on the hoof and make snap decisions. Anything we do will be properly costed, there'll be a business plan, it'll be thought through and worked up by officers. But as I say, proposals for that will be taken to the March Council meeting. On the housing revenue account, I'm going to touch on a few points because I know the Chair of Housing, Councillor Barrett, wants to expand on that. But we've got a 4.8% rent increase from 2026, which had cross-party support at the Housing and Communities panel. We've also got the HRA working balance of £1.5 million is being maintained. When it comes to capital investment, as has already been said, major capital investment is taking place in some key sites across the borough. And I know members of the opposition were involved in the early days in some of these proposals, and I think we will all delight in the fact that they're actually happening. I mean, I was down Hanging Hill Lane today, and you see the building coming up before your eyes. You see the work, the demolition work that's already been done in Harewood Road. People are seeing real change. It's not talk, it's action. And most importantly, the reason we're all here is for our residents. What does this actually mean for our residents? Now, this budget delivers major investment in the borough's facilities. You might not like the budget, you may disagree with it, but that's what it does. The redevelopment of the Brentwood Centre is going to make it a modern, high-quality space. The regeneration of the Baytree Centre will certainly support a more vibrant town centre. What we're not going to do with the Baytree is rush it. Okay, the time has to be right with the Baytree. It's a phased approach. We've got to make sure it stacks up. The finances are in place. On car parking charges and season tickets, we've frozen them for a second year running, following the investment in APR cameras, barriers and new ticket machines. You now pay up front, not an exit. We're also keeping the first half hour free, and we're keeping the Sunday car parking free, which we introduced a year or so ago. You've got the other investments we've got there, fleet investments, CCTV. Very sorry. Do you want to take that one? Yeah, no problem, no problem. Okay. And we've got play area improvements, bin replacements, and investment in decent homes. Whoops. Bear with me. Just go to the last one. Summary. Right, on the summary. So we enter 26-27, whatever happens, we've got elections in May. Whatever happens, this council goes forward from a very strong financial starting point. Careful financial management has got us to the place we are now. We've certainly got greater resilience now than many other councils. However, there is a lot of uncertainty, such as fair funding and business rate resets. None of us can underestimate the LGR, the upcoming LGR. The leader of the council, deputy, opposition leaders, I'm sure you're going to be involved in those decisions. We don't know who we're going to be with. We don't know what it's going to mean.
Councillor Kendall, can you...
Sure, but it's going to be a big issue. So delivering the scale of ambition of the capital programme is going to be a challenge. Workforce capacity, supply chain, inflation all present challenges. But I believe with continued prudence, prioritisation and disciplined financial control, we can take this council forward. So I'm very happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I presume you reserve your right to speak. Thank you, Councillor Kendall. And thank you for your patience to the rest of the members. An amendment budget has been received from the Conservative Group and has been circulated prior to the meeting in Agenda Supplement 1. However, we will hear from group leaders before discussing these amendments. Councillor Russell, as group leader of the main opposition group, you have 10 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before you hit the start on that clock, can I just say that I received the briefing notes at 10 to 4 tonight, and I'd already wrote my speeches, so I'll be doing it, as I spoke to you earlier, the other way around, just so that members know, okay? Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, before I begin, I'd like to express my gratitude to the officers and my colleagues for their assistance and support with our proposed amendment. It would be remiss of me, and frankly quite rude, if I did not acknowledge the hard work and dedication that the administration has invested in bringing this year's budget before us. Both Councillor Kendall and Councillor Mayo have put a great deal of time and effort into this, and I know many in the administration have done so also. I'd also like to thank the leader for keeping his door open for me throughout this process. Like him, my door remained open for anyone across this chamber who was willing to discuss options that would put residents' best interest first. This year, I've opted for a different approach on submission of our amendment. Instead of proposing a single amendment to be accepted en bloc, which has been the usual practice, I've submitted several motions for individual acceptance or rejection. This change allows the administration the opportunity to adopt these policies now, which can be readily accepted and integrated into the substantive motion, rather than possibly being adopted in next year's budget discussions. While I recognise my constitutional right to speak on each amendment, I believe that in the interest of fairness and to maintain the flow of this meeting, I will waive my right to address them individually. Instead, I will opt to discuss them collectively shortly. Before I delve into the specifics of our proposal, I want to reflect on my decision not to contest the administration's proposal to raise council tax at this point. There are several underlying reasons for this, but fundamentally it represents an overture, if you will, towards finding common ground. My aim is to foster an environment in which we can agree on a budget that serves the best interests in our community. I firmly believe that the growth bids proposed by us and the administration collectively, and I stress the word collectively, will justify the increase in council tax. The amendment I propose to you this evening is intricately designed around data we have taken from thousands of residents we have surveyed over the last few years. While we have adopted these as our priorities, it is worth noting where they originated. The Conservative commitment has always been towards creating cleaner, safer and ultimately better borough for the residents, a mantra that even the administration has seen fit to paraphrase. Our proposals. A key initiative we propose is the introduction of 1 hour of free parking in Brentwood Town Centre. This initiative is designed not just to alleviate parking concerns, but to stimulate the local economy by encouraging visitors to spend more time in our high street. We can create a vibrant atmosphere where they can do more than simply post a letter or withdraw cash from an ATM. With just 30 minutes of free parking, opportunities for local shops and services are limited. An hour provides the flexibility for residents and visitors alike to shop, dine and engage with our community, thereby encouraging economic growth. Planning enforcement, often viewed as the Cinderella department, is regularly overlooked and requires substantial support. The department is vital in maintaining the integrity of our community's planning regulations. To bolster their capabilities, we aim to fund a drone training course and provide the necessary equipment for one of our planning officers. This investment will enable officers to gather essential evidence regarding illegal planning incursions that concern our residents. Drones can cover vast areas quickly and efficiently, providing insights that traditional methods may overlook. Empowering our officers with such training and skills will be essential in protecting our greenbelt, and they will be able to launch a drone at a moment's notice when they suspect a breach of planning law. Additionally, we want to ensure the safety of our officers by equipping planning and enforcement staff with body cameras. These cameras will not only protect them, but also safeguard our residents and this organisation from potential legal challenges. It is crucial that officers can perform their duties without fear of intimidation or harassment. In addition to these measures, we propose a feasibility study into the cost and implications of implementing a ring of steel through strategically placed ANPR cameras at every entry and exit point of this borough. I am convinced that such a measure will serve multiple purposes. It will deter fly tipping, reduce car theft, enable real-time tracking of illegal activities, and aid in gathering vital evidence from prosecuting offenders. This is not merely about surveillance, it's about creating a safer community for everyone. Commissioning such a study will identify planning or technical issues. We also envision a comprehensive spring clean for the borough, one that goes beyond merely tackling litter. This initiative will encompass the cleaning of street furniture, pavements and improving lighting in public areas. A clean and well-maintained environment not only enhances the aesthetic appeal of the borough, but also contributes to community pride and safety. Last year, we advocated for the increased support for community transport, and I'm pleased that the administration has adopted this policy. However, it's worth noting that our original funding proposal was for £30,000, which we subsequently reduced to £20,000 once we learnt about the administration's proposals. I urge you to strongly consider this uplift, as it would significantly impact the quality of transport services available to our residents, particularly those who are elderly and have mobility issues. Additionally, we have two one-off expenditure from housing revenue account that present us with unique opportunities to address long-standing issues of improving our garage sites. This matter has been deferred for far too long across various administrations, and it's time we grasp the nettle and take decisive action. Currently, many of our garage sites are less than fit for purpose and are hotspots for ASB and attract rodents. Adequate and well-maintained garage facilities are essential for residents, and we need to investigate whether we invest in this area or seek other solutions that will enhance the overall quality of life in our community. Speaking of long-standing issues, we also wish to address the inconsiderate parking on verges and greens throughout the borough. We want to find solutions that prevent verges being destroyed. Speaking of which, we must also consider the impact of our own fleet of trucks, which often contribute to the degradation of these areas. It's essential that we lead by example, ensuring that our operations do not exacerbate the challenges faced by residents. Whilst this concern is not part of our formal proposals, I believe it warrants speaking about this evening. I want to emphasise that this meeting should not be about egos, Mr. Mayor, self-promotion or who is in charge. Instead, it presents us with significant opportunity to demonstrate to our residents that we can set aside party politics for the greater good. Our focus should be on what is in their best interests and how we can work collaboratively to achieve a shared vision for our borough. For it's the electorate that are in charge, we simply serve them. Could we possibly come together and agree on a budget that not only meets the immediate needs of our community, but also leaves a lasting legacy for future generations? The choice we make today, whether to work together or not, will resonate far beyond this meeting, a concept that will shape the future of our borough for years to come. I encourage each of you to consider the proposal put forth, engage in constructive dialogue, and ultimately work towards a consensus that reflects our shared commitment to serving our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. We'll move to those amendments later, latterly, so we'll conclude their responses. So, Councillor Murphy, as a group leader of the Brentwood Independents, you have 10 minutes to speak.
I think probably 2 minutes will probably take what I'm going to say. We all talk about big numbers, and we talk about the reorganisation we're all facing in 2 years' time. My thought is, let's get the building blocks straight for a start. All we do is talk about big figures and how clever we are that we've saved this money, we've got this money, we've got it. We've got a huge windfall with Childerditch. I'd like to see more of that money going in grassroots things like bin men and like the depot. The depot is terribly outdated and underfunded. It needs a complete and utter overhaul, but not a removal. What it needs is to be run properly with the proper amount of staff, and also I think everybody should look downwards, not upwards. We have great aspirations, and we ought to all have aspirations, but what we should do is make sure the building blocks are in place and we can all work together to deliver something for Brentwood, because we've got one chance at this. And I think, hopefully, with the way I've been able to be welcomed, because to speak for 10 minutes for me is a nightmare. I didn't think 10 months ago, when I went to be an independent, I would ever get the chance to speak like this. But I speak from my heart. I want this borough to go forward, sailing along together, all of us. We've all got different views, and we all get there in a different way. But please, can we have consensus? And also, I want to thank the officers, because I've asked some really naive questions, and they've allowed me to go up onto the top tier with a lot of inexperience. But with good heart, I would like to say that the budget isn't what I would probably do in lots of ways, but I'm not yet experienced enough to have a real understanding of it. But thank you for allowing me to try, and thank you. I hope I give an alternative view than others at other times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Quirk, as a member of the council, as part of a political group of the council, not a part of a political group of the council, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A quick, I think it's a point of order probably, just for my residents to understand, can we just have someone go on record just to explain, not for my benefit, but residents, why I'm the only councillor in this chamber that's only allowed to speak for 3 minutes? Just if we can have that as an explainer to go on the record first before I actually start my 3 minutes, please. No, I think it's important for residents to understand. You know, I am part of a political group. I'm a Reform Party member. I was elected on October the 2nd. I'm not trying to play up, genuinely. I will be asked tomorrow why everybody else had 10 and 15 minutes. Councillor Kendall was given an extension. I've only got 3 minutes. I'm not complaining.
I recognise.
I want an explanation, please.
Thank you, Councillor. I recognise your question, and I did allow an extra minutes for Councillor Kendall, and I would have done to anyone else for a short period of time. The monitoring officer can offer an explanation on how the procedure works within our constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councillor Quirk, it is all laid out in the Constitution, speaking on the budgetary framework. Obviously, the leader is entitled to 15 minutes. He didn't take his 15 minutes. He asked for the chair of F&R to present within that timescale the budget. Obviously, the opposition group leader gets 10 minutes, and then other parties under that. As yourself, as you're the only member of the Reform group, it's not actually a group of the council, you're entitled to 3 minutes, but it is all laid out in the Constitution.
Okay, and thank you. I understand that, but just to be clear, so this is a Brentwood Council Constitution rule rather than a national legislative rule. Can I just make that? Can I just ask that question for clarity, please?
Yes, Councillor Quirk, it is in the Constitution. If you as an independent, you will still get 3 minutes. They're an independent group. They've formed a group.
Thank you, albeit not registered with the Electoral Commission. Anyway, I will move on to matters of the budget, just to make that point. Okay, so Councillor Aspinall asked if there is a council anywhere else in the country that can put together a better budget. And obviously, look, he's looking for some applause. We understand that. There's obviously elections in the coming weeks and months. And I can tell you there is, I'm afraid, Barry, and that is the reform-led Durham County Council, who today have decided to set a 0% council tax increase, whilst also increasing spending for local residents. So I'm afraid that we may well end up being in second place, but it just shows what a reform-led council can do, insofar as that being official news today from my friend Darren Grimes, a 0% council tax increase. So I think that bests a 3% increase. And with regard to that 3%, I'm genuinely astonished that I am the only councillor in this chamber that is going to say that a 3% increase for our council, for our residents, is a disgrace. The fact that we have reserves of £19 million, we have £70 million in the bank, according to Councillor Kendall's speech just now, and we're going to fleece Brentwood's residents to the tune of 3% extra at the same time as a Labour cost of living crisis. This is more Rachel Reeves than I think it's the Lib Dem Labour coalition of Brentwood. Tax and spend. Spending on vanity projects. The Brentwood Centre, we all love it. Some of us even use it. But £25 million worth of so-called investment, frankly, there's no ROI on that, ladies and gentlemen. There is no return on that at all. And the fanciful amount of money that's being funneled towards the Baytree Centre is ridiculous. The Baytree Centre, by the way, is something that when I first got elected in 2005, 21 years ago, we were talking about redeveloping. Remember the days of the cinema proposals? We are now 21 years on. So frankly, to hear the administration as they are for now, talking about investing in something that we've been talking about investing in for the last 21 years is frankly fanciful. A 3% council tax rise. Not sure if Councillor Kendall and Councillor Aspinall realise this, but that is the equivalent to £273,000 in cash. If we were to take just 1.4% of our reserves, that would pay for that 3% rise and would mean that our residents, the residents of Brentwood, the council taxpayers of Brentwood, would not be forced to have a 3% increase at such a troubling time financially. So I certainly won't be voting for this budget on that basis. I think it's cheeky at best, disgraceful at worst, frankly. And with regard to the amendments that Councillor Russell's put forward, there are many in there that I support, particularly 1 hour car parking in Brentwood. I understand that we'll potentially be voting on block on those. I don't know if that's coming up. Are we going to vote individually? I'm quite good. What I'm missing is the costing. So Councillor Russell has come up with 9 amendments, 9 further costs. But you didn't mention it in your speech, Councillor Russell, in terms of how you're going to pay for it specifically. So anyway, I'm very, very surprised indeed that the other 38 members of this council are quite happy to increase council tax when we absolutely do not need to be doing so.
Councillor Kirk, I'll give you an extra for this.
Mayor, if I may, man, point of information, I've just checked on Durham's council tax, and it's not a 0 increase. The information I have, it's gone up by it's going up by 1.99%.
It's
on their website.
No, it's not. It's a 0% rise.
Well,
Can't read the press release.
well,
Sorry, we're not going to
sorry, mate, but it's on the website. And it's on the press
Okay,
release.
thank you, Councillor Kendall. That's noted. No, you cannot, Councillor.
Councillor Kendall's
No,
right.
you cannot. It's not a debate. Thank you. So, Councillor Russell, will you move your amendments 1 to 9 to Appendix K of the agenda? You have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as I already said, I forego my right to speak. I've taken it up in my introduction speech, so I will move these amendments 1 to 9, and Councillor Hurst will be second.
Councillor Hurst, would you like to second the amendments?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd very much like to second the amendments. I think some very good points have been made, and I'd also like to thank the officers for the support they've given us in preparing these alternatives to the budget in front of us. We have a good statement from the S151 as to whether they present a balanced budget. They clearly do. I think the main point is, and Councillor Quirk's made a few relevant points. I think it's probably just worth pointing out, I think the 1.99% on Durham is to fund their social care increase, whereas the general budget is a zero. Warwickshire, also run by Reform, 9% increase, with an exception from central government to allow them to blow any normal council tax increase out of the water. So this is about Brentwood. This is about the fact that we have, as a council, and Councillor Aspinall pointed it out, made some very good decisions in the past and generated a substantial surplus. What I find a bit disappointing about the budget in front of us is it's not sufficiently focused on growth. If we can get this borough moving, if we can stop shops leaving the high street, if we can use an hour's free parking to turn around the growth trajectory of our particular locality, I think we can clearly generate faster growth in this borough, and we can probably close the £54,000 gap in the year after next, which is actually laid out in the papers in front of you. It's really important to me that we do that. Yet it's also important to me that we fulfil the other priorities of our residents, particularly around community safety. There's some really powerful pieces in here about enforcement activity, about ANPR, about how we actually make sure that we are capable as a council of working in partnership. And here I will declare an interest, not a pecuniary one, for instance, with the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, my other hat, in terms of active patrols jointly with enforcement officers to make sure that we have as safe a borough as we possibly can. Another thing that will help our residents thrive in this borough. We have got the opportunity, as councillors on the administration have said, this year alone, £3.75 million into extra reserves. In this budget, another £2.5 million into earmarked reserves and £1 million into the general reserve not spent. To some extent, yeah, it is clearly the case that we are raising taxes but not getting traction. And my contention would be we need to get traction. We need to provide the safe environment, to provide the growth environment, to provide the investments that our residents desperately need to see. Really pleased that Councillor Kendall listened to what we said in the Finance and Resources Committee and has said that you're coming back in March with a way of spending that extra £1 million. But frankly, yeah, this is the budget. We need to hear it now. We're giving you some real opportunities now to do things that will make a concrete difference to this borough and get traction. Please accept these amendments. They will make a difference. They will do what our residents need to see to have a cleaner borough, a friendlier borough, a smarter borough, a thriving borough, a more prosperous borough. If you don't do that, then I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to support your budget overall, because in that case, I don't see why we need that council tax increase. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Councillor Aspinall, do you accept? No. Councillor Russell, would you like to take the amendments one at a time rather than en bloc?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If we can go line by line, one by one. We've had this discussion before. I think the leader's well aware of that, and I outlined the process in my opening speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Aspinall, do you accept any of the amendments?
Mr. Mayor, unfortunately not at this time. We cannot accept the amendments as they are. Quite rightly, Councillor Quirk pointed out that the costings aren't here. We have to take this through the right proper channels, which is our committees, and I'm not dismissing it, and I would not do what previous administration leaders have done, which is to talk down to the
Councillor Aspinall, if you just state whether you accept them or not, and then we can go to
I have.
debate.
I'm explaining that I'm not going to do what was previously done to me. Okay? There's a lot of good stuff in there. We'll take it, and you'll find out why they've been accepted as we go through line by line.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, could I ask the officer, David Dixon, to outline how this has been costed, please? Because it's been said now by two people that we haven't even costed this. If you could, Mr. Mayor.
Is there something you can respond to, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so they have been through the finance officers. They are estimated costs, so we will need to go and get them confirmed. But as far as speaking to experts in all the different departments that have been reviewed, and as far as we're aware, as good estimates as we could achieve in the last week.
So, go to the amendments. Amendment 1, parking. Proposal. First hour parking free, currently 30 minutes at Copfold Road, William Hunter Way and Chatham Way. This extends to the existing free 30-minute period to 60 minutes to support local shops and the high street.
If I may be helpful, being that none of these are accepted, we may as well then take them on block, mightn't we?
Unless the vote's different.
Oh, okay. No, sorry. I'll retract that.
So we open each amendment to debate. Councillor Kendall has indicated to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I could respond to the first amendment, as parking comes under my responsibility on finance and resources. This is an issue that we did look at. We've looked at it a few times since the joint administration has been in place. Well, you came up with a proposal last year, basically the same as this one, as I understand it, and we spoke at that time about the cost and everything else. What I would say is this. I'm against the amendment for a number of reasons. I'll give you the reasons why. What it will do is it will create a recurring loss of income. We're talking about 200,000 plus per year. Okay. Now, that's income this council needs to deliver various services. That's why we charge for parking per se. If we didn't need the money, it'd be completely free parking, but we do need the money and it goes towards resident services. It also creates a cliff edge because you're going from nothing to £2.50. And my concern, not just my concern, but retailers' concerns as well, because we've spoken to retailers about this, their concern is that people will rush back to their cars before their time is up. And it's something that retailers and businesses don't want. I mean, I've spoken to some retailers who don't like the half-hour free car parking. They're not in favour of that because, in their view, that speeds up the whole process. Now, one of the reasons we've introduced AMPR and barriers and new ticket machines is because we're trying to encourage people to stay longer. Okay? That's also why we've frozen the car parking charges. We've got the differential at Copfold Road, multi-storey car park. You can still park in the town centre for an hour for £1. Okay? So there's a difference between that and William Hunter Way and Chatham Way if you go to the multi-storey. We've also, as I said before, we've kept the free first half hour and we've kept the free Sunday parking. So, in our view, we believe the car parking charges as they stand at the moment, compare them to other areas. We're not talking Lakeside because that's free. We're talking other areas around Basden, Chelmsford, Havering. Believe me, we are cheaper or certainly far more competitive than a number of those other areas. So, we have a good parking setup in this town. Could it be better? Yes, of course it could. And one of the things that's going to happen next week at Finance and Resources, we are having a parking review. We are looking forward.
30 seconds, Councillor.
Any of you get the agenda, we'll see there's some ideas and suggestions being put forward by consultants. We're not going to accept, obviously, those per se, but what we'll do is we'll look at that. So if you've got some input, come along to F&R next week and put that forward. But as I say, I won't be accepting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think, first of all, we need to state this isn't the same proposal that we tabled last year. This is actually focused on Brentwood High Street, and we took Shenfield out of scope to try and reduce the cost to make this amendment more acceptable to the administration group. And it's a great shame that they haven't chosen to actually support the High Street by agreeing this amendment. Our High Street is struggling. We've lost certain retailers. The electric bike shop's gone. Pret has left. Our bank, NatWest, is due to leave in May. And basically it's on life support. And you could have actually taken a bold, and to use a word that some members over the other side like to use, ambitious amendment to actually do something about it in the short term to make sure that we don't lose any more major retailers from our high street. I think it's a massive shame. It's a shame Councillor Naylor's not here tonight, because I know he had very strong views about car park prices in Chatham Way. We've tried to focus it on an area that's struggling economically, where we have void shops, and that's why you should have supported this tonight, and I will. I'm very disappointed that you haven't actually accepted this positive amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Councillor Chinnery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very disappointed you haven't accepted this amendment. As I said last year, the hour in Brentwood would be a great incentive for residents who work from home to go into Brentwood, go and have a coffee, go and have lunch, browse a couple of shops, and we need it more than ever. With the Labour government increasing employers' NI, increasing VAT, businesses that are even thriving are struggling. They'll need to grow 10%. One of my favourite coffee shops said they need to grow 10% to keep the same amount of profit this year because of those tax increases that are absolutely adversarial to growth, to opportunity, and to make Brentwood the place we need, a place that's worth living in. So I'm really worried about the state of Brentwood High Street in particular. We need a good incentive for people, Brentwood residents, to come in, spend a lunchtime in our high street. And considering an awful lot of people love to moan about parking, free parking would be a great incentive to get the thousands of Brentwood residents who live in Hutton and Shenfield back into Brentwood High Street. So I'm very disappointed it's not been accepted. An hour free parking would have been a great thing for the borough, and I hope the administration changes in May so we can deliver it as Conservatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Parker.
Perhaps you should spend some money on the chairs. Thank you, Mayor. Over the years, when I was in administration, I probably upset all my leaders because my fate was always to have gypsies and parking on whatever panel I chaired. So I've been doing parking for a long time. The 200,000 ongoing, I really think we should take the punt on it to a certain extent for a year, so that we could see what difference a footfall would be in the town centre. The other thing is, though I know 30 minutes and an hour creates, if you like, a bigger rush to try and get back to your car when it's only 30 minutes, and it doesn't create the same sort of rush for an hour, we did find, excuse me, we did find that the secondary cost did help to push up the 30 minutes we was losing. So we have the same situation here, where possibly the secondary cost after an hour could increase, and that 200,000 might not be quite what it seems to be. So I would support the parking, because the main thing is not only footfall, it's carfall as well. We need the parking, but we also need it to bring the people into the town centre from the rural areas to boost our shops. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Minor.
Yeah, just a couple of facts. Obviously, to reiterate the point that Councillor Kendall made earlier on, if you want to park in the multi-storey car park, it costs you £1. So I'm not at all sure how many Brentwood shops would be benefited by customers who've got £1 less to spend. If they're coming in and they want to have a coffee, for instance, buying a coffee is going to cost a lot more than £1. So we're talking about a relatively small sum of money if you want to do most of the kind of shopping things that you'd like to do in Brentwood High Street. It's also the case, obviously the group opposite, the main group opposite, were in administration in this borough for quite a long while. I don't recall when they were in administration them having a 1 hour free parking policy. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm wrong, obviously that will be pointed out. It's very easy to say these kind of things when you're in opposition, when you don't have to face the consequences. And let's remember that this is a rolling cost. The costs of this roll on year. We're not talking about a hit on one budget. We're talking about a hit on every budget. We're talking about a significant change in the way the finances of this council work, which has a long-term effect. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to be doing what we're doing. And also, let's just remember, Bringing in the new systems that have been brought in has effectively reduced parking for most people who park in those car parks, because now they're only parking for the amount of time they're actually using. What they were doing before was parking for time they often weren't using, unless they literally did run back right at the point they needed to leave the car park when their time was up. So parking is being made free for pretty much everybody who parks in these car parks, which is going to have an enormous benefit for the economy, for the high street, for the people of the borough.
I haven't had anyone else indicate to speak, so we will now move to the vote by show of hands.
Mr. Mayor, can we request a recorded vote, please?
Indeed, 5 people to indicate they require that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can members please state for, against or abstain when I call your name? Councillor LaPlane.
Against.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Against. Councillor Aspinall.
Against.
Councillor Baldock.
For.
Councillor Barber.
For.
Councillor Gareth Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Tim Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Chinnery.
For.
Councillor Martin Cuthbert.
Against.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Thank you. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sunger. Councillor Worsford.
Against.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
So as Mayor, I have casting vote. I will stick with my original vote of against. So. So therefore, Amendment 1 is lost.
Yeah. Okay,
So we move on to Amendment 2, Community Safety. Proposal, enhanced enforcement activity including A, drone and body-worn video equipment, B, doubling ASB patrols to support police Operation Guardian. We're open to make Councillor Dr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Improving community safety is a priority and we all want residents to feel safe, supported. However, this proposal does not represent good value for money. So I'll start with 2A. The Council already has access to drones for planning enforcement through our engagement with Thurrock Council. Enforcement officers already have body-worn cameras and the community safety personnel, who are not enforcement staff, do not have the operational need for the additional equipment, but could do if they were required to, or needed or requested. So we already have that use. More broadly, these proposals in community safety will be brought forward as part of the corporate priorities work in March. This will be set out on an evidence-based, costed options, and I welcome members' ideas for proposals as these are developed. Overall, the over 2A would duplicate existing arrangements and would not improve outcomes. For that reason, it should not be supported. 2B, a visible presence is important to tackling antisocial behaviour. But before committing new funding, we need clear evidence on the impact of the proposal compared with other enforcement options. Further proposals on community safety will be brought forward in March as part of the corporate priorities work. The work will set out an evidence-based, costed option so members can compare different approaches, and I welcome ideas as these proposals are developed. In the meantime, a significant enhancement is already underway, the recruitment of additional enforcement officers. These new officers will strengthen the visible presence on the high street, supporting both parking and antisocial behaviour enforcement, and free up existing team members to focus on antisocial behaviour hotspots elsewhere in the borough. Introducing additional patrols ahead of proper assessment of their impact and ahead of the March options appraisal would not be responsible or targeted investment. Therefore, this amendment should not be supported at this stage. Thank you.
Councillor Hurst, you've indicated to speak. However, you did second the motion and you've already spoken against that. I'm sad to say we won't get to hear from you again on the amendment, unfortunately. So, next indicated to speak is Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to stand up here on behalf of the residents of Hutton East. I'm sorry that Councillor Hurst is disappointed in not being able to address this. I hope not to take you too long. I agree with every word that Councillor Dr. Tim Barrett has said. I'm not unsympathetic to policy underlying the amendment, but for the reasons and detailed reasons that he suggests, I think this must be the right way forward, and I would commend it to all the councillors in the chamber.
It's just a point really to make, and I've already said that I'll waive my right to speak, but just to, we're talking about enforcement officers. I'm talking about planning enforcement officers having body-worn cameras, which I know do not have such cameras being used, and planning officers as well. Okay. To the drones, we need these operatives to be able to get them up in the air, not ring them in from Thurrock. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just a point of information, the planning officers do have access to body-worn cameras if they so request them. And also the drone is accessible to us for planning enforcement. The officer from Thurrock comes with the drone. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Barrett. No one else indicating to speak. So we'll move to the vote.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask, are you going to do a recorded vote on each of them? It'll just make it easier for Zoe.
Can we take it that each one has voted for that when we come to that point?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please can members state for, against or abstain when I call your name. Councillor LaPlane.
Against.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber. Councillor Gareth Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Tim Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Martin Cuthbert.
Against.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall.
Against.
Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot.
Against.
Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell? Councillor Sankey? Councillor Slade? Councillor Sangha? Councillor Worsfold?
Against.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
Thank you, Ms. Vance. Again, I'm called upon to cast a casting vote, and I will stick with my original decision of against. So, therefore, Amendment 2 is lost. Councillor Mona.
Yes, sorry. I'm just wondering, on a point of order, I'm just wondering, is there an actual paragraph in the Constitution which allows you to bundle together a whole series of requests for a recorded vote? Do we have a paragraph number? I mean, I know that's the process for calling for that. I'm not quite sure why, and it's going to be time consuming. Obviously, it's going to be time consuming. It's up to those who want to call for it to take it to be time consuming. Is there an actual process in the Constitution which says you can bundle together a whole load of appeals of that kind?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, Councillor Russell requested they were all voted on separately, so that's why we're going through this process. If they decide that they want to change it and go on block, then that's how we can do is one recorded vote on, even if you put them down into categories. You can't, they wanted them separately. Didn't you? That was your request? Yeah. We've agreed that there will be a recorded vote. We know 5 councillors that have agreed for that recorded vote, so the clerk is prepared for that. We just have to do a recorded vote.
So we move on to Amendment 3, proposal, AMPR, AMPR feasibility study for potential ring of steel covering traffic entry points into the borough. We're now open to debate. Councillor Tim Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. AMPR has recognised limitations on the issues we face. The Council's current AMPR cameras are not linked directly with the police systems, which reduces their effectiveness for crime or antisocial behaviour related intelligence or immediate response. Offenders involved in fly tipping and other unlawful behaviours most often use full-face fake number plates, which undermine AMPR detection. Given these constraints, commissioning a feasibility study is unlikely to lead to a practical or effective solution. Further proposals of community safety will be brought forward as part of the corporate priorities work in March. They are set up with evidence-based costed options, and I welcome members' ideas as these proposals are developed. For these reasons, this amendment should not be supported.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. No one else indicated to speak. Councillor Barber.
I just wanted to say on this one, it's a real shame you're not actually spending a fairly small amount of money on a feasibility study on AMPR, because, as I understand it, this council is woefully performing in terms of convictions for fly tipping, and you might actually find that something from that feasibility study would actually help you actually convict some of the fly tippers that are plaguing our borough at the moment. So you should vote for this amendment, because it will actually help Councillor Worsfold and the Clean and Green Committee to actually pursue these people.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. What we've been trying to do over the last few years is install cameras in places where the fly tipping is taking place. Usually we have roads that we can put a camera at the beginning of the road and one at the end, so we can see whether vehicles go out, come in full and go out empty. To have these APL cameras in the main entrances to Brentwood would enhance what we're trying to gather on the other cameras for fly tipping. Unfortunately, I think it's suggested that Britain has more cameras than anywhere else in the world, but in this instance, keep in check on the vehicles that come backwards and forwards to Brentwood, because most of the fly tipping comes into Brentwood. It's not by people living, though we have a number of sites that probably encourage fly tipping. It's mainly coming in the roads into our villages from outside Brentwood, and if we can keep check on those cars in any way possible, it must be an advantage to our enforcement.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Dr Tim Barrett. Yeah, the principle of this sounds fine, but I don't think it meets the test of practical reality. The truth is that fly tipping is carried out by organised criminal gangs. We've seen the Serious Organised Crime Agency and the Environment Agency and others in Oxfordshire try to track down people who dumped thousands of tonnes worth of rubbish in there, and they weren't wearing necessarily their own plates when they did so, and I very much doubt that the serious organised crime that carries out fly tipping in this borough, to the greater extent, is going to be using their own plates either.
Point of information, Mr Mayor, just to say that when we did that with the Environment Agency and Essex Police's Serious Crime Directorate in this county, we did make use of the AMPR cameras.
Okay, there's no more speakers indicated, therefore we move to the vote. I assume we will require a recorded vote. We've understood who they are. So.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Please can members state for, against or abstain when I call your name. Councillor LaPlane.
Against.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber. Councillor Gareth Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Tim Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Cuthbert.
Against.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sangha. Councillor Worsford. Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
Again, I'm called upon for a casting vote. I'm going to stick with my original vote. Thank you. Therefore, Amendment 3 is lost. Amendment 4, Street Scene and Environment Proposal. Jet wash all council benches across the borough. We're now open to debate. Councillor Worsfold, are you going to speak?
Yeah, if no one else wants to. My problem with this is it seems rather random. Why jet wash just council benches? One problem we have is we don't actually even know who all the benches belong to. We believe that quite a number should be the responsibility of Essex County Council. They appear, if you'll pardon the pun, to have washed their hands of the benches. So one thing we need to do, first of all, is to take stock of the benches we've got. We then need to join up the dots of what we're trying to do with benches, because we have this wayfinding project, which I think all the members have seen the proposals for, which is for the town centres, and that includes a budget for benches. Some of the parish councils, of course, own benches, and we need to be very clear on who owns what bench. We have benches in open spaces, we have benches in our streets. At the moment, we don't join up the dots, and I would rather step back and spend money on joining up those. I'd rather have a proper programme of repair, renew and replace. And that might include cleaning some benches. Some of our benches might actually fall apart if we jet wash them, to be perfectly honest. So we actually need to get a handle on the condition of all our benches I think we're going to have to put our hand up and say we're going to have to take responsibility for the Essex County Council benches, as they don't seem to want them. And in many cases, we should be distributing new benches. The other weekend, I walked through a small park in Leighton, in my old ward, about a third of the size of Hutton Rec. Hutton Rec, I think, has 2 benches. This park had 8. And it was full of families because people could sit there, they could watch their children play. There was plenty of benches. Older people could sit and have a conversation with friends and neighbours. And it was thriving because the benches were there. And that, I would rather we were spending £50,000, possibly even more on new benches in places where they're really going to make an impact. We've got the corporate priorities budget. I can tell you, and I've already spoken to my colleagues, they will know this, I want to see something in the corporate priorities budget for doing something serious to improve the quality and number and distribution of benches right across the borough. So this is a bit random. Let's not do something random that makes the whole thing even more disjoint. Let's step back for a couple of weeks, and I'd be very happy to sit down and talk to anyone on the opposition benches to come up with a proper plan. On a bench. On a bench, of course. A proper plan for having a decent number of high-quality benches right across the borough. So that's why I won't be supporting this random suggestion at this stage.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, it's a bit disappointing that you're not accepting this amendment. Just because we haven't done it in the past doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. Many people have said a lot of the borough looks filthy and dirty. Elderly people don't have much choice when they come along and they see a wooden bench. There's some down in Brentwood Road, in Herongate, parish area, admittedly, which are filthy, and you won't want to sit on there with clean clothes. There are loads of benches in Shenfield that get high footfall, and there is a lot of food waste that's left on those benches. Periodically, to jet wash those doesn't necessarily have to have it on high, very, very high pressure. You can do it gently. You can make it substantially better for the elderly to actually sit on. And when we talk about random acts and initiatives, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I was at the Clean and Green Committee where it was being proposed to actually set up crime scene handling of fly tipping around the borough. That one was kicked into the long grass. The daftest idea that ever came to this council. Absolutely binned, but rightly so, by Councillor Worsfold. So all we're asking, using the officer's estimate of cost, is what it would cost to clean these benches and bring them up to standard. It was Councillor Barrett that said we needed to leave a legacy for the people of Brentwood, with Brentwood disappearing in a couple of years' time. So why can't you just jet wash these benches carefully in the last couple of years that Brentwood's around? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Councillor Quack.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say what a sad state of affairs it is when, just on the basis of playing pure politics, the Liberal Democrats can't support what is clearly a very benign and sensible and useful amendment from the Conservatives here. This is simply playing politics. I think our residents will be really frustrated and irritated by this. That, you know, the Conservatives, and I don't always agree with them, as you well know, this is a sensible amendment, a sensible proposal that doesn't cost a lot of money. Effectively what the Lib Dems are doing here, and I'm writing election leaflets as I'm sitting here, I can tell you, is voting against the residents of Brentwood being able to sit down. That's exactly what the Lib Dems are doing here. I think it's pathetic. Guys, throw them a bone. For goodness sake, vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. I've no more speakers indicated, so we move to the vote. You assume a recorded vote, and those people recorded.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can members please state for, against or abstain when I call your name? Councillor LaPlane. Against. Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber. For. Councillor Gareth Barrett. Against. Councillor Tim Barrett. Against. Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Councillor Cuthbert. Against. Councillor Davis. Against. Councillor Fulcher. Against. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sunger. Councillor Worsfold.
Against.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
My casting vote is against, therefore the amendment is lost. Amendment 5, proposal, pavement moss programme, purchase of specialist machine. We move to a debate. Anyone intends to speak? Councillor Worsfold.
This is another one that comes under the heading of sort of slightly random. I saw this, and the first thing I did is I asked the officers, have we got a problem with moss on pavements? And they said to me that no member has asked them to clean moss off pavements. When the NATS teams have been out, no one has given them a list of pavements covered in moss. So that was the first problem I had with this. Second thing I said, well, if there is moss on pavements, do we need a specialist piece of equipment? And they said, no, we think that the equipment we've got can cope with moss on pavements. So I did ask some of my own colleagues, and I'm sorry I didn't consult on the other side. Councillor Rigby very helpfully did point out a few pavements in Hutton and sent me some very nice photographs that have moss on them. And we are going to send out a team with the existing equipment to see if that, as the officers think, can effectively remove the moss. So at this stage, I would say, frankly, we really don't need a piece of equipment to sort out a problem that no one has brought to our attention in the past. And we think we've got the equipment to deal with those pavements that have been brought to our attention. Very happy to bring a report on how we get on with using the existing equipment on the couple of pavements we do know about to a future clean and green, and for a modest amount of money we can, if we need to invest in something new, I'm sure we can find that at the time. But frankly, it really is, it's a non-starter at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Worsfold. Councillor Barber.
I'll be brief. So, a couple of things. When we actually submit stuff to the NATS team, we actually ask them what they can do. And we were given a list, when I certainly became a councillor, of the tasks they would and could do with the equipment that they had. I can tell you that I did actually request my own road, which I live in Pine Crescent, where moss was removed to some degree by the sweeping machine. But there are the specialist equipment to remove moss is the one that we've got the one off, which we sent the quote and the price. It's a proper official one, and it would enable the NATS team to be able to do that. If you were to say the NATS team are to use one of the small CityCat sweepers, you are taking those away from the shopping parades around the borough because they're operated by different crew. So this would allow the NATS team to be able to do this. I was in White's Green a couple of days ago with Councillor Gordon, and I've got pictures on my phone which I can happily share with you of pavements which are very unsafe, particularly in the winter for the elderly. There are many frail residents. Cliveden Close, I believe, in Sheffield, in your own ward, has got similar pavements which are affected. The accidents of elderly people slipping on that moss when it's damp or wet or icy, it puts them in hospital and can set them back for years. £3,000, and you're all going to vote against on the Mayor's casting vote, I predict.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. I think probably might be the only time I have to agree with Councillor Quirk in terms of the fact of we should be giving back to our residents. Something I don't agree with, which is the 3% rise. But if we're doing it, then we should be offering something back to our residents. The only thing I can see with these 9 amendments is that it gives the administration an opportunity to work out 9 different ways to say no. Otherwise, kicking it into the long grass, because it is good for our residents, isn't the answer. Like Councillor Quirk, I'm already writing the next pamphlet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As former chair of Clean and Green and a current member of Clean and Green, this, to my knowledge, has never come up at committee stage. If it was so important that we wanted to spend time debating and voting on £3,000 of specialised equipment that we probably already have within house, and if we haven't, we certainly will be able to find it from budget. Do you really seriously believe, with the hundreds of millions of pounds we're discussing tonight, that £3,000 for something to clear paths with is an intelligent way of spending our debate on our budget? And if you're going to write a leaflet about it, I'll look forward to it.
You can go, yeah, read it.
Councillor Park.
Right, no one else indicating to speak. So we move to the votes. The recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please can members state for, against or abstain when I call your name. Councillor LaPlane.
Against.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber.
For.
Councillor Gareth Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Tim Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Martin Cuthbert.
Against.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sunga. Councillor Worsfold. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
My casting vote is against, and therefore the amendment is lost. Amendment 6. Proposal. Lighting improvements at Hutton Recreation Ground to allow safer early morning and evening use. Open to the debate. Okay to speak. Councillor Worsfold.
First, I'd like to correct something that Councillor Parker said. I haven't said no outright to the previous 2 suggestions. I've said we need to look at them properly, thoughtfully, and in context. So on this one, again, I think this isn't thought through properly. I think there are some missing elements here. Number one, the 120,000, I understand, is the cost of the lighting. Before we even consider putting lighting in a recreation park, we need to consult the residents surrounding that park. That's going to cost money. Secondly, we don't actually know, and I've asked officers this, whether the power supply to Hutton Rec would support extensive lighting throughout the recreation ground. That needs to be surveyed. That could be a substantial additional cost. If we are to put lighting in the park, we need to make sure that we can maintain it. In order to maintain it, that means you need to be able to deploy cherry pickers in the park. The paths are not wide enough for a cherry picker, and you certainly wouldn't want to send a cherry picker onto the grass in this weather because you probably never get it off. So we've got those three things in relation to this part. The other thing that concerns me is why this one. Now, look, I appreciate there are some very strong advocates across all parties for Hutton in this chamber, and I fully respect that. But there are other open spaces that might require significant investment. We recently did a survey of all the play equipment in our open spaces, so we were able to step back and take a look right across the board and say, this is the priority. These are the ones that really need doing. And I think if we're going to look at lighting in open spaces, we need to take that step back and look at all of the open spaces and say, which is the priority, where is the demand, where are the residents going to be happy to see that additional lighting, and where can we deploy lighting, and this is my final point, where it won't disrupt nature too much.
Thank you, Councillor Warshaw. Councillor Rigby.
I'd actually like to hear what Councillor Dr. Gareth Barrett has to say before I speak, if that's all right, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Gareth Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think some of the tone has been heard in the wrong phrase, some of these items. So on this item, I would like to, while I am opposed to it as currently drafted, I would like to make a direct and personal outreach with my own guarantee that this will be considered as part of the corporate priorities in a wider package where we will investigate, Councillor Warshaw part, the feasibility of this item alongside other recreation grounds, alongside other lighting, and that will appear as part of the corporate priority package. And in turn, I welcome councillors from the opposition to develop something that we believe is workable and deliverable for not just Hutton Recreation Ground, but other areas where lighting is an issue in dark spaces, in public spaces in this item. I'd ask them to consider withdrawing it on my commitment and promise that that item will come to an appropriate committee before the end of this year and will appear as part of priorities. I understand if you do not, but I want to make it clear that is my position, whether you withdraw it or not, whether you vote for it or not, that is what we plan to do, because I recognise the issues when it comes to lighting in these areas and these kind of community hubs and public spaces, but also want to actually get a costed proposal in that's sensible, that we can all work towards together. But it's your position, and that to make that clear, that is from me and from the asset perspective, and I think Councillor Warshaw has indicated that he'll be considering this as part of a wider package as well. So hopefully we get something that is feasible, that is practical, that is workable, rather than at this stage, and I recognise costs have been made, we can get something that actually works with those challenges we've indicated we face. If that's agreeable, that I think will be very welcome, but I hand over to the opposition in turn and recognise your amendment and your call. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Before I move on to Councillor Chinnery, I'll ask Councillor Russell to respond to the request from Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be withdrawing any of the amendments. Thank you.
Councillor Chinnery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a Hutton East councillor, I just am speaking this evening to stress the importance of lighting on Hutton Recreation Ground. I was a student at St Martin's School not too long ago, and I would go and see friends after school. It would get dark about 4 p.m. on Cedar Road, and some of my friends would have to walk across Hutton Recreation Ground late at night, or not even late at night, maybe about 6 p.m, and it's dark. It can be a bit dangerous. And you worry for those friends who have to cross the border into Hutton North because it needs good lighting, it needs that infrastructure, and I find some of the excuses that came from Councillor Worsfold to be a bit weak. Although I do appreciate Councillor Barrett's efforts to get a package ready and available, but I'm happy that Councillor Russell is keeping the amendment in. I will be voting for it. And one other point, the polling station for 1,500 people in Hutton East is just across that recreation ground. If you want people voting late at night, crossing the recreation ground, you need good lighting, you need good accessibility. We don't have that at the moment. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I do welcome Councillor Barrett's comments. I mean, they are to be welcomed, but I agree with Councillor Russell on our side that we shouldn't withdraw the amendment. A couple of things. Let's just get this quite clear. The reason this is before us is because that particular recreation ground faces a number of uses which I do not see mirrored in any other recreation ground around the borough. There is a large estate, one side of that recreation ground, and there is a shopping parade which is regularly used by the residents of that area on the Rayleigh Road, the Co-op and some of the other shops where people walk backwards and forwards, particularly the elderly. There is a history of antisocial behaviour in that area. There is a challenge in that area, but I do not think that that is comparable to Courage playing fields or King George's playing fields, where I see no migration of people going to the shops and coming back on a regular basis. If anyone on the other side can actually come up with one which is comparable and fair, a fair comparison, I would welcome that to be included with lighting, because we are responsible for that recreation ground. This is not Essex County Council, it is one that our residents use, that we're responsible for, and of course consultation with residents about the proposals would naturally be part of that, that amendment. But you wouldn't just do it without asking, of course not. But the bottom line is there is a safety issue there, we're responsible, and we should be ring-fencing some money to address the problem before Brentwood disappears, because when we get to unitaries, very little chance of getting these investment into this area yet once we're a unitary council. And I really would ask Councillor Rigby to think about voting for this amendment.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Barber. Councillor Rigby.
Well, I'm grateful to Councillor Dr. Gareth Barrett for his very generous statement, and I welcome the statement that's been made by Councillor Worsfold. It strikes me there are certain practicalities about this. Now, obviously, in principle, I would support something like lighting improvements at Hutton Recreation Ground, but it has to be done as part of a process, an officer-led process, a costed process, an assessed process, taken forward to the relevant committee. That is the way we do business in Brentwood Borough Council, and that is the way which I think we should do business. Now, I acknowledge what Councillor Chinnery and Councillor Barber have said, and I'm not without sympathy, but this is not the way to do it. So not now and not here. But in March, when we look at our corporate priorities, I will be looking very closely at this issue, and I will be looking to see that along with equity in the borough, which is a fundamental principle of how we allot our assets and resources, that the needs of Hutton residents are taken care of. And I'd be grateful for my colleagues in the Joint Administration to remember that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to point out that one of the things that I find wrong with this administration is what Councillor Rigby said. This has to be officer-led. No, it doesn't. It should be member-led. We then ask the officer what and can be done. It's not an officer-led detail, it's a member-led. Thank you.
Councillor Minot.
Dear. Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if some people have never been in an administration and don't have any idea how administrations make decisions. It's almost as if some people think that members just come up with stuff off the tops of their heads. We could presume we could get rid of all the officers because we don't need them. Members just make decisions. Obviously, officers and members. Obviously, officers and members discuss things with one another. Come on, let's be sensible about this and adult.
Councillor Minor, if you excuse me, sir.
Can I just clarify that we absolutely sought officer advice on this and not
That's just what your colleague has done.
Sorry,
that's what I'm
Councillor Minor,
responding to. I'm not talking about the funding.
Councillor Minor, if you can temper your...
what I'm responding to is the point that was just made.
Please, if you can...
The point here is that... Would you like to talk to people about calling
Councillor
out?
Minor, I've been requested to kind of temper your language. No calling out from anyone. Let's try to get to the end of this debate in a civilised manner. So, Councillor Minor, if you would...
The point here is that we've had a straightforward offer by a member of this administration, by a chair of a committee, to deal with this item in a way which is non-party political and is not about ego. Now, we've been told earlier on this evening that the opposition response to this administration's budget is not going to be party political and it's not going to be about ego. There was a straightforward offer which took the ego and the party politics out of this, and that offer was simply spurned. The reality here is, not just with this item, but with the rest of these items, this is a pin the tail on the donkey wish list from a bunch of councillors who are not in administration and don't have to think about how the budget as a whole works. The reason why all of these items are being taken separately is because they are not an alternative budget and they are not a one amendment to a budget. And that's because they're not coherent. There's nothing coherent about any of this. I could have popped up and made comments about so many of the things so far, and I'm sure I'll feel the need to do it later on, whether I do it or not. There's nothing coherent here. We've had claims that things would be improved when the actual proposal is simply for a feasibility study, and a feasibility study will achieve nothing at all. There are sites across the borough that could do with lighting. This is one site. It's a random choice. You think you're going to make party political credit out of it, maybe you will. It's a random choice. It's not been thought through. It's not coherent. Therefore, it can't be voted for.
Thank you, Councillor.
Oswald's initial reasons that he couldn't do it would be that the electricity supply might not be sufficient. I can tell you that if those lampposts have been there more than 10 years, it will be sufficient because they'll have upgraded to LEDs. And also when it comes to maintenance, the maintenance will last perhaps the LEDs will last perhaps 10 years. So the maintenance issue and the power issue would not be relevant. As to everything else, I've got nothing to say.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Ash.
Hi, thank you. What this demonstrates in all of these amendments thus far is that the opposition wish to avoid the proper way of doing these things, which is to go to committee, have it discussed by both sides of the chamber, and then come to a recommendation that the officers will fulfil and full out. This is nothing but a wish list from areas where you hope to gain political gain, obviously. But that's your prerogative. That's the opposition's prerogative. But let's be clear, this is just avoiding the proper way of going about things. You cannot accept this type of thing.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, just want to say that there was a suggestion that we could look at this item in committees and everything else. Well, I felt that I had certain assurances that this would be going, that we would have a few of these accepted. I had those assurances. I've lost all trust in that now. I cannot trust that this will go to committee.
Councillor, is it a genuine point of clarification or...
Mr. Mayor, sorry. We're governed by the Nolan principles. The way that the opposition has now just been spoken about by administration members is frankly quite appalling. If you honestly believe that actually bringing forward as part of the budget amendment, you could argue whether we should have done it a different way, but this is the way we were doing it, and it is a valid way under the Constitution in association with the officers to prepare the numbers. But if you honestly believe that we've brought forward something like lighting of a footpath for political advantage, we would have loved to
sorry,
Councillor
Barrow, I think that's not a point of clarification or
that's to withdraw their statements in terms of that we're doing
I don't
this for
think that's
political
appropriate
advantage,
in
because
honesty,
we're not.
Councillor Barber. Whilst I respect your views generally, I think that's just a matter of, this is just a matter of opinion and respected as such. So Councillor Parker, you have indicated to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to my colleague behind me who happens to have the skills in relation to the electricity supply, I also can say about the electricity supply, to the Hutton Community Centre, because I cut through it and I can assure you it's strong enough.
And thank you for that interjection, Councillor Parker. Right, I've no more speakers indicated, so we therefore move to the vote, and we continue with the request for recorded votes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can members please state for, against or abstain when I call your name? Councillor LaPlane.
Against.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber. Councillor Gareth Barrett. Councillor Tim Barrett. Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Martin Cuthbert. Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haig. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sunga. And Councillor Worsfold.
Against.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
And my casting vote reflects my original vote of against, so therefore the amendment is lost. Right, we will need to break in a short while for one of the members to carry out a medical activity. We're 7 minutes in. Should we break? Do you require that break now, Councillor Aspinall, or do you wish to continue with the next amendment? What would you like to do? So, with members' appreciation, Councillor Aspinall needs to apply some medication, so we'll take a short break. What was that, 5-10 minutes?
5 minutes.
5-minute
break. So we'll reconvene. Well, if we take it to the hour, so to reconvene at 9 o'clock. Could councillors begin to take their seats, please? Right, if councillors can please return to their seats, we will start as soon as everyone's ready. Thank you, Councillor. Right, we'll come back to order, please, councillors.
Yeah.
So we'll set the timer back up. We move on to Amendment 7. Transport. Proposal, support for Brentwood Community Transport. Good. Do we not? We did.
Yeah. So it's sugar rush.
Oh, we definitely. Sorry? It definitely
Sugar
did.
rush.
Thank you for reminding us of that last amendment. So we do move on to Amendment 7, Transport. The proposal, support for Brentwood Community Transport, additional one-off funding to strengthen essential accessibility for vulnerable residents. This is an additional £20,000 to the growth proposed in the 2026-27 budget. We open to debate. Councillor Dr. Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I respect the spirit of this and previous amendments made in this debate today. And I know this area is very close to members' hearts, especially Councillor Poppy, who's been a long advocate for Brentwood Community Transport. We absolutely support the great work of Brentwood Community Transport, and that we have given them a £10,000 this year and last year. Unfortunately, we are not the transport authority, as its county council is, and I will keep a close eye on how uplift or change the funding regime with Brentwood Community Transport goes on. Should there be further or losses of their funding streams, we will address this in the priorities as appropriate, and I will work with any member who wants to on the locality fund across the boards to use that funding part as appropriate for Brentwood Community Transport. I cannot support it. I stand all of their and make that appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barron. No other Councillor Poppy.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak, Mr. Mayor, given I'm a trustee of the charity as well as the
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Poppy. Obviously, the dispensation is on the council tax and that relates to your home and things like that. obviously if you said to me beforehand, we could have probably incorporated that. Have you got another member that would like to ask your question for you?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Brentwood Borough Council works in partnership with Brentwood Community Trust, and our funding helps towards staffing costs and equipment. This proposed additional funding will support our residents and promote social inclusion, along with assisting with maintaining independence, thus reducing the negative impacts of both social isolation and loneliness. We, as elected members, are here to make a difference. This proposed additional funding in this amendment will make a difference, and I urge all members to support this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. I have no other members indicating. Councillor Minor.
Yes, two things. First of all, I'm in the same situation as Councillor Poppy. I'm also a trustee of Brentwood Community Transport. So, well, just one thing, not on Brentwood Community Transport, just on dispensations. I did ask in a previous year, because of my trusteeship, whether the dispensation that we were given in relation to budgets also covered that trusteeship. And my memory, the reason why I didn't ask this time around was because my memory was I was told that it did. So I just thought I'd say that.
Councillor Minor and Councillor Poppy, I'll have to take that offline and look for you, because I believe that your dispensation is around your voting on the budget, the council tax, and that's what makes you have the dispensation. If you would all declare an interest in council tax, so you would not be able to vote on the budget. It doesn't relate to these trustees of Brentwood Community Transport.
I think possibly going forward we need to look into that more deeply outside of this particular issues this evening.
We obviously do, Mr Mayor, because at the beginning it was stated that the budget debate, which this is part of, we all got dispensation for it. It wasn't, Claire, please, I'm not, you know I'm not going to go. It wasn't, you know, just on the council tax. It was the budget debate. This is part of the budget debate. I'm quite happy that if I'm not allowed to speak because I'm a trustee, and the same for Mr Minor, Councillor Minor, that's absolutely fine, but we need to sort it out.
Yep, I think it needs to be addressed and finally assessed, and we'll answer the question after tonight's proceedings. So we have no more speakers indicated, so therefore move to the vote. We'll conclude recorded vote as previous. Please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Please can all members state for, against and abstain when I call your name. Councillor LaPlane. Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber. Councillor Gareth Barrett. Councillor Tim Barrett. Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Martin Cuthbert. Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haigh. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot.
Am I allowed to vote? Okay.
Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sunga. Councillor Worsfold. Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
Again, my casting vote echoes my previous vote of against, so therefore the amendment is lost. We move on to Amendment 8. Proposal, feasibility study on improving HR 8A owned garages. We move on to the debate. Councillor Tim Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The housing revenue account is funded fully through tenants' rents and must remain focused on maintaining, improving and growing the housing stock. This principle is reaffirmed by the Section 151's commentary on this item. The future of HRA-owned garages has been explored several times, including a feasibility study in the last 18 months. These reviews show that some sites can be restored to use as rentable garages, and we are moving forward on these as appropriate. However, more extensive redevelopment or alternative uses did not produce viable business cases. Given the Housing Department's limited resources and the need to focus on stock improvements, essential safety and maintenance work, and the delivery of the Strategic Housing Delivery Programme, diverted tenant-funded resources into further feasibility work that is unlikely to change the prior conclusions would not be justified. The amendment should not be supported. Thank you.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this was another lost opportunity by the administration in refusing this amendment. I've sat through many housing committee meetings, some of them I wasn't serving on, but it's a topic that particularly affects our ward in Hutton North. Councillor Patel and Pound and myself have had many conversations with residents who actually are tenants, who are paying for the HRA account, who want this matter resolved. We were told multiple times that this would be addressed over the last 2 to 3 years. We were told community payback were going to come out and clear it all up. Then we were told to wait because dedicated resource was being brought in and they would come up with a site-specific plan for everything, still waiting to see the site-specific conclusions and the actions that follow. And it has stalled. I'm told that the resource that was brought in to actually review those sites has now been pulled off to work on other items. There is no excuse for leaving large swathes of Brentwood Borough in the state that they currently are, attracting antisocial behaviour, crime and other dereliction and dilapidation of council property. Do you believe that the income stream to the housing revenue account is going to be increased, about the same or reduced by letting these garages rot? If you say no to this initiative, what's your alternative plan? Or is you don't actually have a plan? This is an administration without a plan. At least a feasibility study would reinitiate the process of looking at those sites.
Yes, just very quickly, there are 3 of these separate proposals which involve only proposal for a feasibility study, and yet when it's being spoken about, the impression that's being given is that we're actually talking about solving the problem. These proposals are not about solving problems, the feasibility study proposals. If you were talking about solving the problems, the money that would have to be quoted is far larger. So you're trying to say we're proposing that the problem be solved, but the costing of it is just the costing of a feasibility study, which will not solve the problem. So unfortunately, 2 different things are being done or talked about simultaneously here. And it's a bit of a pity that that's going on. We've already had it once. This is the 2nd time. The item immediately after this does it a 3rd time.
Thank you, Councillor Minor. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. The garages are in a deplorable state in many wards, and this is something we've been concerned about and addressing over many years with the aim to get things done. What have we done? We've actually managed to achieve the first council housing for over 40 years, and it's been discussed earlier this evening with great results for a lot of people and a lot of tenants in this borough. What we have had our feasibility studies, and we will need to continue and have more feasibility studies going forward. But the problem is we have a finite resource. We have a finite resource in finance, and we have a finite resource in manpower. If we could wave the magic wand, I could come up with 2 or 3 garage sites immediately that I would like to see redeveloped. But where there has been investigation and people far more knowledge than me have gone into, officers have gone into it, some of them are just not feasible may have to be destroyed at the end of the day and maybe just open parking. It's not an issue we're turning our back on. It's not an issue we're going to forget. But we have priorities, and at the moment our priorities are with the new developments until such time as we can continue with the garage sites redevelopment.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Quirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we just replay what Councillor Minot has said? He said very, very clearly, as is true and correct, that this is an amendment that simply seeks to have a feasibility study put in place as the first step to a solution. If a feasibility study is so inane in terms of its cost, if it is so little in cost compared to obviously the solution itself, then why would the Lib Dems not vote for it? He's already characterised what a low cost it would be just to put a feasibility study into place. Because we're not talking about huge investment at this stage, it's just a feasibility study at a minimal cost. We're now about to see the Lib Dem Labour coalition vote against this, even though they've just acknowledged that it's a tiny piece of work. Amazing.
I may have just misheard my colleague, but if I understood what he said, there was a feasibility study conducted 18 months ago. So there was a cost associated with that. I don't know what another feasibility study now would yield. What difference would you get from a study now as opposed to one 18 months ago? Thank you.
Can I answer? All right. What's the point in asking me a question if I can't answer? Well, it was. She just said, what is the point of another feasibility study? And I'm about to answer the question. Oh, rhetorical. Oh, okay.
So no more speakers indicated, so we'll move to the vote, and we'll continue with the recorded vote and those previously. So, thank you, Ms. Vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can members please state for, against or abstain when I call your name? Councillor LaPlane.
Against.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall.
Against.
Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber. Councillor Gareth Barrett. Councillor Tim Barrett. Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Martin Cuthbert. Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gelderbloom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haig. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sangha. Councillor Worsfold. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
My casting vote echoes my original vote, so therefore against, and the amendment is lost. So we move on to Amendment 9. Here we go. Proposal. Feasibility study on addressing unlawful and environmentally damaging parking on HRA Greens. Be open to debate. Councillor Dr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Parking on greens and verges is a challenge in our communities. However, due to decades of right to buy, many of these greens and verges are now used by the wider community and not solely by HRA tenants. It would be therefore, in my opinion, unfair for HRA tenants to bear the full cost of improvements that will benefit the general public. The appropriate long-term solution is to work towards transferring suitable greens and verges to the general fund, so the maintenance and improvements can be funded by all those who benefit. The HRA therefore will remain focused on its legal purpose, and there is a consistent borough-wide approach to parking environmental concerns on verges. And I would very much support, at that point, once they're transferred, a feasibility study. But at this stage, I would not want HRA tenants to pay the brunt of this when many of the houses around these verges aren't in the HRA. So in the interest of fairness, I do not think this amendment can be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just shocking, really, to be honest with you. Those assets could have been transferred if the administration had actually done it. You're actually saying, well, the assets are in the wrong place, so we can't do it. But there's been nothing stopping you for the last 2 or 3 years actually reviewing where those assets reside, but you haven't done that. You're talking about the unfair burden of a spread of £10,000 across all of the people who are tenants across the borough. Individually, I'm sure you'll be talking down the increase in council tax that you're proposing. If you'd like to work out what the 10,000 is spread across all our tenants, I'm sure that's pretty small compared to your council tax rise. One of the problems with this is that we've seen gradually a change of behaviour with the public. Some public feel now that they can take their car across a green, ripping the grass up, leaving muddy tracks with impunity, that there is no recourse to them, no fine, no towing away. Now, having worked with council officers, with my colleagues, Councillor Pound and Patel, on the instances that we have in our ward, I can tell you that the council can do nothing unless the green is signposted legally. And then it uses terminology, legal terminology from Essex County Council to justify taking either fines or towing the vehicle. And there has clearly been, when we've requested new signage, no funds to actually put in new posts that can't be ripped out by someone with a tow bar. And this is about having a feasibility study to say, what legal notice do we need to put on these posts? What level and standard do we need to install them? Can they be installed on street furniture instead to prevent them being removed? And it's a £10,000 one-off cost. Go on and surprise us tonight. One of you, have the courage of your conviction to stick up for the residents who live round a green that's a mud track and say yes to this one and see what happens. And you know what? We might actually improve our borough before we disappear.
Thank you. So, we sat here with some patience listening to these 9 amendments, and I think for good reason. They've either been suggested and alternatively agreed to discuss at committee, which is fair. But it takes me back to some of the similar financial proposals under the previous administration, where we had a disastrous decline in the finances of the council, cost cuts, which were horrendous for some of the services in our borough. But also, I remember one particular year when there were 50 brand new proposals for things in the corporate priority plan of the previous administration, none of what got done. Nothing. And I look at what the joint administration is proposing, which is basically best ever financial improvement in a year. It's extraordinary what has been done, and it should really be congratulated, together with a focus on. I'm getting to it, and I'm with a focus.
Excuse me, sir. You need to kind of speak to the amendment itself. You'll have adequate time to speak about the motion when we come to that. But if you wish to speak to this particular amendment,
okay,
please do.
Thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I did want to talk about all the amendment actually in one, because the evening started well with a very upbeat report on how the administration have made so much money. So much money we've been able to pay off huge amount of debt and throw considerable amounts of money at 3 major projects. Realistically, none of which are going to be benefiting any of our residents in the near future.
I'm sorry, Councillor Marsh, again,
I'm coming on to these.
You need to speak to this particular amendment itself.
Okay.
You'll have an adequate facility to speak to the motion when we come to that.
This amendment that we've just heard, like all the previous ones, will benefit the residents sooner rather than later. A number of them affect public health, public safety, and one of them, the one at the beginning, that would do an awful lot for our high street and bring in footfall. All I would like to say is that the amendments, I know you want to take them individually, but the amount of money that would be needed to cover all of them is minuscule compared to the huge amounts that are going to be thrown on things like the Bay Tree Centre and Brentwood Centre. So why can't we just trim a little bit from each of those three major projects and get on with something now for our residents? Thank you.
Right, Councillor Slade.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This council called a climate emergency. Parking on the grass verge has several environmental impacts, including soil compaction, erosion and damage to grass, thus disrupting the natural growth and reducing its ability to absorb pollutants, soil contamination, reduced water absorption, loss of biodiversity. Parking on the grass verges often causes damage to plant species, insects, small animals. Therefore, parking on these areas disrupts the habitats and disrupts ecosystems. Therefore, surely in line with the declared climate emergency, all members should be voting for this amendment.
Councillor Gareth Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. I hoped that our post-pause, the debate was getting into a more positive situation. And various points I think it's worth addressing in the answer. First off, the opposition who led the response described it as shocking. We wouldn't support something like this coming from the HRA. I think in general, if it was a general fund amendment, there was potentially more of an acceptability level. And in point, you said that we had years to work out how to transfer it. We've only been the last, I think, year worked out what greens the HRA owned and what the general fund owned. So it's very hard to work out what assets to transfer when we don't know who owns what where, who services, who cuts it, who manages it. That has been a process that, unfortunately, for decades wasn't done. It has been done now. That process will continue. Councillor Marsh makes some valid points in terms of where we get money, and that's why in the corporate priorities we will be bringing forward plans under these themes. And some of the ideas that have been suggested tonight may end up being part of that. I can offer that. If they work out on assessment, on a business plan, to be the best option, that would be things to be brought forward. But we want to do that holistically with other options and other ideas coming from the officers, coming from other authorities, coming from members more widely. And I think that's the fairest way to do it when we have an extra sum of money rather than on the night necessarily. It is in turn not shocking to ask for us to say it is inappropriate for social tenants to pay it. Now, on the theory that we have somewhere in the region of 2,300 social homes, we are in fact asking each of them to pay roughly £4.60-ish for this, which is basically the council tax rise for a feasibility study. Then in turn, if the feasibility study says, before we transfer the Greens, that we want to do work, we're asking them again to pay a tenner, £20. That is unfair, that is unrealistic. That's why this transfer is the right thing to do in this circumstance. Overall, we recognise there are challenges, we recognise there are opportunities. We cannot trim capital budgets for current accounts. Capital budgets come from capital funding. At the same time, we've created an opportunity for ourselves in the corporate priorities I hope we will use effectively. And in turn, the one thing I don't want to use when we have created a general fund environment that is positive is HRA money on anything that is not exclusively improving the housing for our tenants when there are so many who need their homes improved and a better standard of those housing. That, for me, is my priority. And in turn, when we look at the amount of £10,000 on the average social rent, that's about, for the average social tenant, that's 1.5 tenants' money just going to a feasibility study. That may not seem like a lot, but to me, that 1.5 person deserves a better home. They don't deserve a feasibility study in the green that we should be paying from the general fund.
That's why I'm not supporting this amendment. This circumstance, I get the theory, I get the points that other councillors are making, but for me, this is the wrong source of funding for it. That's why on this occasion I cannot support it. It is not a partisan, it's not political, it is not a shocking thing to say that social tenants shouldn't be paying for things that the general fund should be saying. It's a fair and reasonable thing, and that really irritated me when I've been trying to be respectful in my time as a committee chair and tonight. So I hope members recognise it's not shocking to say social tenants should not be paying for things the general fund should be paying for. That is a moral imperative. Even if it's £10,000, that's £10,000 that should be paid for by council taxpayers in general, not social renters. That for me is intrinsically important, and I really regret
Councillor,
that.
you've exceeded.
Thank you.
Well, anybody who speaks after Councillor Gareth Barrett suffers because he always speaks so well. All I've got to say is, this is the third time round, we have had, I appreciate there's probably members who have written out their speeches in advance, but again, we have had people attempting to claim that somehow doing the feasibility study solves the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. Doing the feasibility study costs 10,000, according to this. You spend the 10,000, and as has already been explained, you're charging the wrong people for the 10,000 and it's under the wrong budget heading. Even if you do that, you still have the problem. How much would it actually cost to solve the problem? Now, if you go through the process, which this administration is trying to do, of bringing these things to committee, having looked at them properly, having everything properly costed, so you get to a business case, you see how much it costs, and then obviously you can work out whether it's something that you want to use your money for. These random appeals for feasibility studies, even when feasibility studies have already been done, which is then being ignored, is not solving the problem. And yet people speaking in favour of the motion claim that it will be solving the problem. It won't, and that's why there's perfectly good reason to vote against it, and a perfectly good reason to approach this in the way that this administration is actually approaching it, which is looking at the problems holistically, trying to work out how much they would cost, working out the priorities, and then trying to solve the problems. And it's perfectly true to say that in the past, we have had all sorts of ridiculous claims about things that were going to happen. We can get onto it when we're actually talking about the budget proper, when we've finished wasting our time with this stuff. All of those empty claims, all of those promises came to nothing because they weren't properly funded. And we're getting exactly the same thing happening tonight.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think these amendments would be there if it weren't properly funded, for the start. HRA, it says on this amendment, number 9. Also, it says Greens. As far as I'm concerned, the Greens belong to the borough. It might belong to, some might belong to the HRA, some might belong to other ratepayers. A typical socialist answer, I'm afraid it's rubbing off on everybody on that side of the chamber. Something we wasn't able, you probably know my feelings about net zero and the rubbish that goes with it. We had an answer rather late to get into the budget which said that we probably spent or wasted £78,000 on biofuel. Another cost that we don't need, another load of money we could have used on some of these amendments.
Sorry, Councillor Parker, can you speak to the amendment? I've no more speakers indicated, so we'll move to a vote and assume we require a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please can members say for, against or abstain when I call your name. Councillor LaPlane?
Against.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert? Yes. Councillor Aspinall?
Against.
Councillor Baldock? Councillor Barber? For. Councillor Gareth Barrett? Against. Councillor Tim Barrett? Against. Councillor Chinnery? For. Councillor Martin Cuthbert? Against. Councillor Davis? Against. Councillor Fulcher? Councillor Gelderbloom? For. Councillor Gibson? For. Councillor Gordon? For. Councillor Gorton? Against. Councillor Haigh? Against. Councillor Hurst? For. Councillor Gerard? Against. Councillor Kendall? Against. Councillor Lewis? Against. Councillor Marsh? For. Councillor Mayo? Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pounds. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sangha. And Councillor Worsfold. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 18 for and 18 against.
My casting vote echoes my original vote of against, therefore the amendment is lost. We will now debate the original motion. Members will have 3 minutes to speak. Councillor Tim Barrett.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I'll be going first again. It's me again, even. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The budget reflects our belief that every person in Brentwood should have a safe, secure home and the chance to live well in a strong, supportive community. As Chair of Housing, Health and Community Committee, I am pleased, once again, we're not simply standing still on our priorities, we are moving forward. Through the Housing Revenue Account, we are making the largest commitments our council homes have seen in many years. More than £40 million of capital investment is planned in 26-27, with over 69 million across the period, to ensure our existing homes remain decent, warm and well maintained, and that we can build the new affordable homes families need. The Decent Homes programme continues to deliver fundamentals that matter to tenants: roofs that don't leak, modern safe kitchens and bathrooms, reliable heating systems, updated windows and doors, and electrical systems that meet today's safety standards. These are not glamorous projects, but they are projects that are essential to dignity, comfort and security. Alongside, the Strategic Housing Development Programme is progressing, turning underused sites into new homes for Brentwood residents. Schemes like Brookfield Close, which are moving from plans on paper to real bricks and mortar, adding to our stock of affordable homes and helping reduce our waiting lists. In a housing market that often feels out of reach for younger people and families of Brentwood, these new homes are vital for widening our community opportunities. We know there's more to do, and there's a difficult balance to strike. Construction costs have risen. Expectations on energy efficiency and climate responsibility are higher, and rightly so, and we have to make sure that our homes are built so we can afford them and for decades to come. The updated 30-year business plan for the HRA has carefully worked through to make sure that they continue to invest, continue to maintain and continue to build without putting the future of the housing stock at risk. Beyond the bricks and mortar, the budget supports the wider network of services that keeps people afloat when times are tough. We continue to fund Citizens Advice, Brentwood CVS and Brentwood Community Transport, ensuring that residents can access independent access, voluntary support and affordable transport when it's needed. The Locality Grant Fund, now in its second year, gives parish councils, community groups and local organisations the ability to take forward their own community initiatives, whether it's a project to tackle loneliness, support young people and create community space. Those drive our local wellbeing and campaigns. We are investing in multiple things, including the fabric of our housing, the services that support people at difficult moments, and community infrastructure that people live full, connected lives. At the same time, we continue to keep HRA on a sustainable path. This budget keeps faith with the core values of the Housing, Health and Community Committee: decent homes, good health and vibrant communities. I commend it to the Council and I hope it has your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, this budget marks a decisive step forward for Brentwood, one that strengthens our financial foundations, invests in community safety, modernises how we work, and reflects the clear priorities of our residents. Over the past financial year, we've delivered the most significant single-year debt reduction in recent council history. We've repaid £45 million of council debt, reduced total borrowing from £237 million to £192 million. A major part of this achievement was the early repayment of £44 £44.2 million of market loans from Phoenix. By acting decisively, we secured a significant discount equivalent, as Councillor Kendall has said, to saving £1.8 million every year for the next decade. These actions are saving the Council £850,000 annually in interest payments. Now, this is not just good financial housekeeping. It is a strategic shift. Money that once went to servicing historic borrowing is now free to protect essential services and invest directly in our communities. And because of this strengthened position, we are able to deliver major capital projects with no new borrowing for 2026-27, safeguarding our long-term stability and protecting future benefits. One of the key areas of investment in this budget is community safety, an issue constantly raised by residents, businesses and, yes, councillors. We are expanding and modernising our CCTV network across the town centres. CCTV remains a vital tool supporting Essex Police and the Community Safety Partnership, helping to tackle crime, antisocial behaviour and unlawful incursions. It is both a deterrent and an evidence-gathering tool. The results speak for themselves. Our CCTV service has already contributed to the arrest of shoplifters on Brentwood High Street. Not only have we seen multiple arrests, we've recovered thousands of pounds of stolen goods and even impounded a vehicle. One recent spree involved £10,000 worth of goods being retrieved, showing that our previous investments have been worthwhile. The improvements in this budget will enhance coverage in Shenfield and Ingatestone, strengthening our ability to track and deter criminal activity across that part of the borough and elsewhere. And as fly tipping continues to blight our communities, our partnership with the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner and the deployment of mobile cameras is helping us catch offenders, including a prolific fly tipper who is now before the courts. In Q3 alone, CCTV detected 598 significant or serious incidents in Brentwood. This budget enhances camera quality, strengthens placement and ensures we bring perpetrators to justice. Alongside safety, the budget prepares Brentwood for the future through continued digital modernisation. We are strengthening IT security and improving data management and expanding digital services that will make it easier for residents, but it will also address many of the issues that have been flagged up at my Audit and Governance Committee in relation to past audits where there have been non-compliances. This budget has been shaped by the people, by officers, by councillors. Our consultation received 573 responses, almost double last year. Now, it is a source of some disappointment
that's your time.
that Hutton East wasn't necessarily recorded as being in those there, but they're all good responses, and I commend them to the Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very proud to be Vice Chair of Clean and Green. A lot of what has been talked about tonight affects the Clean and Green Committee, and as David and Gareth have said, we will be considering that in the rightful place at committee. Residents consistently tell us that what they want from their council is simple, clean streets, well-kept parks, and the confidence that they and their families are safe in their neighbourhoods, and none of us on this side would disagree with that. This budget shows that we have listened and are prepared to invest in the people and infrastructure needed to deliver it. A key part of this budget is a significant strengthening of our frontline environmental services. We are funding additional street cleansing staff and supervision at the depot, along with improved training for operational teams. That means more capacity to empty litter bins before they overflow, to respond to hot spots, especially fly tipping, and keep our streets, parks and open spaces in the condition residents expect. We are backing this up with investment in the vehicles and equipment our crews rely on. The capital programme continues to support the replacement of ageing waste and street cleansing vehicles, reducing the risk of breakdowns and service disruption. It also puts money into the Whalley depot, making sure that this critical operational hub is fit for purpose now and with the demands of a larger authority in the future. We are continuing with the bin infrastructure plan. Following a detailed audit, we now know where bins are missing, damaged or too small and not fit for purpose. The additional funding in this budget will allow us to replace more than 100 litter bins
in 26-27, improving the capacity and the appearance of our public spaces. It's a straightforward, practical step that residents will notice. On safety, we are expanding and modernising our CCTV network. It includes funding to improve coverage in key areas, supporting the work of Essex Police and our community safety partnership. It's not a silver bullet, but it is a powerful tool in deterring offenders, supporting enforcement and reassuring investments. Residents have told us that cleaner, greener and safer is their top priority. This budget honours that. It gives us the people, the kit and the infrastructure to raise standards, respond faster when things go wrong and continue building a borough we can all be proud of. I ask members to support it. Thank you.
Exactly on time. Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It will come as no surprise that I fully support the proposed budget. In the current financial climate, a balanced budget with an investment programme for the forthcoming year with adequate reserves should be supported by all members. Balanced budgets are fundamental in providing sound financial management on behalf of residents. The proposed budget is prudent, robust and sustainable. There has been and continues to be much adverse publicity of failing councils due to lack of financial discipline, a consequence of inadequate government funding, frozen council tax, poor cost control and ill-advised speculative investments. Indeed, you only have to look south of the Thames to a large county council to see how not to run an authority. While acknowledging it's difficult to influence government funding, the Joint Administration has demonstrated a tight control on this council's finances. Additionally, this presented opportunities to reduce the high level of inherited debt which was achieved. The residents' consultation was clear in what residents wish to see: a focus on the environment, which includes the range of activities undertaken by the depot, including recycling, bin collection, street services, tackling fly tipping and community safety and enforcement. These key issues are identified in the budget and funding allocated to support. Another priority is to engage more closely with parish councils who receive and total substantial precepts. It is recognised that a closer relationship with parish councils should be actively progressed to understand their priorities and support as appropriate, particularly with the potential impact of LGR. Coming to the alternative budget, I have already mentioned that reduced council tax is a false economy. Lost incomes in perpetuity, taking no account of inflation on escalating costs. Would residents really forfeit potential reduced services for a minimal increase in council tax? Let's not forget that just 10% of council tax is retained by this council. An example would be reduced waste services, including tackling increased litter and fly tipping. The council is frequently attacked for not doing more to clear up, though no mention is ever made of those who litter and fly tip in the first place. It is not the council or councillors who create the problem. I would suggest a cross-party working group to tackle this issue. We are, of course, moving to uncertain times and uncharted territory. Stability of finances is paramount, both to tackle what is around the corner and to ensure the interests and welfare of our residents is uppermost in our deliberations. And finally, to provide a sound platform post-LGR. Mr. Mayor, I'll finish as I started. I support the proposed budget.
Thank you. Councillor Gareth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This budget and medium-term financial strategy is about confidence in Brentwood's future. They show that we can invest at scale in our town, our communities and our frontline services, while also getting a firm grip on the council's finances and clearing historic debt. We are not choosing between ambition and responsibility. We are doing both. Over the next 4 years, more than £110 million we invested in our borough. That includes a once-in-a-generation redevelopment of the Brentwood Centre, major regeneration of the Baytree Centre, and significant funding for new affordable homes and housing improvements. It also includes investment in our depot, our vehicle fleet, our digital systems, and our public realm. We're doing this after paying down around £45 million of debt in just 1 year, the most significant single-year debt reduction in our history, and without taking on any new borrowing in 26-27. This is a remarkable turnaround and a direct result of the decision this joint administration has taken. And at the heart of this budget is a simple promise. Every pound will be used to strengthen our communities, improve the services residents see and feel, and prepare Brentwood for the challenges ahead. We're investing in the things people care about. Extra street cleansing staff, new investment in our depot and fleet, an expanded CCTV network, and new funding for environmental improvements, footpaths and cycleways. It means cleaner streets, better maintained parks and open spaces, and more visible action on community safety. We're also backing our town centre and our local economy. For a second year running, we are freezing car parking charges in council car parks, supporting residents and businesses during the cost of living squeeze and encouraging footfall in our high streets. At the same time, we are pushing ahead with the Baytree Centre regeneration, turning years of speculation into delivery to create a more vibrant, attractive and sustainable town centre. The Brentwood Centre is another key part of this story. For too long, we have relied on short-term fixes for a facility that is central to the health and well-being of our residents. This budget commits £25 million to a full redevelopment, creating a modern leisure and community hub that will serve Brentwood for decades to come. This is exactly the kind of long-term, positive investment our residents expect us to make, and I am thankful for all members of my committee across party who have supported this, encouraged it, challenged it and improved the plans as we have developed them. We are doing all of this while we keep the council on a stable financial footing. The budget is balanced not just for next year, but for the full 3 years of the medium-term financial strategy. Reserve remains strong, our borrowing requirement is under control. Good governance, sound financial management and a clear focus on residents' outcomes. The budget before you is not a public sector wish list, it is a political choice to prioritise cleaner streets, safer communities, investment in leisure, regeneration, housing and preparation for the future while reducing debt and living within our means. In short, this budget puts Brentwood on the front foot, it invests in our town centre and our neighbourhoods, it strengthens the services people see every day, it cleans up our balance sheet and it does so in a way that is fair to residents now and fair to those who will come after us. I am proud to support this budget this evening and I ask all members to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Wassall.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. And thank Councillor Gerard in particular for a great summary of the work that we've done on Clean and Green, and Councillor Sankey and Councillor Barrett for reinforcing that as well. It's been a comprehensive programme and a great year, and this budget enables us to take many of those initiatives forward. I want to frame that in the context of one of our policies in particular, and that is our ambition to achieve net zero emissions for this local authority. Councillor Parker may laugh, but listen carefully. So we have a coherent and wide-ranging net zero strategy that is deliverable and cost-effective. This budget underpins that. When we declared our climate emergency in June 2023, with support across the chamber, which I was very grateful for, it showed that this cuts across party political boundaries. We set an ambitious target of reducing our own emissions to net zero by 2030, and we didn't hang around. We got to work immediately. Now we are almost 80% of the way to hitting that target. That's something I'm very proud of. But my ambition goes further than that, and it's simple. It's this: let's hit that target by the time we emerged into a new unitary authority. Let this borough be a beacon of excellence. This is about reducing our carbon emissions. Of course it is. That protects our environment, but it also helps improve the quality of life for our residents. And one of the most important benefits is cleaner air. By cutting emissions from buildings, transport and energy use, we reduce pollution, leading to better health outcomes. Health authorities estimate that in the UK, over 30,000 people a year die prematurely as a result of pollution and poor air quality. That's a savagely sad statistic. When the air is cleaner, our residents live healthier and more productive lives. You can't put a price on that, and our investment in net zero is as much about improving the health of our citizens as it is about environmental improvements. And actually, another key benefit is cost savings. Improving energy efficiency in council buildings and in homes reduces energy bills over time. Investing in renewable energy and smarter infrastructure, perhaps through our community energy projects, the one we've got going already in Ingatestone, will also protect residents and the council from rising energy costs in the future. Strategy also supports economic growth.
Time. So, thank you.
So that's 30 seconds?
No, you concluded your time.
All right. It's a strategy I'm proud of. It's one this budget supports. It's an investment in the future.
Thank you,
it's
Councillor.
investment in health and a better environment.
Right. Can I ask councillors not to call out, please? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to support this budget. If you're going to increase the budget by the maximum permissible by law without having a referendum of residents, you need to be demonstrating that you are delivering at the right level and capacity for those residents. If you look around the borough, you will see that we are not on top of the environmental concerns. The A12 is festooned with litter. That is a Brentwood Borough responsibility to clean up. Our bins are often overflowing, including this Monday morning in Shenfield. Our rural lanes down Doddinghurst Road past the Brentwood Centre are looking distinctly filthy. Earlier on, we were told by the council leader that it was just a fantastic budget and it was wonderful. It was actually quite something that Donald Trump would have been proud of, that speech. We were told that we are not going to rush into it about the Baytree Centre by Councillor Kendall. Well, no one's ever going to accuse you of doing that, David. This council has failed to get on top of the lack of housing repairs across our housing stock. With the level of complaints about access is through the roof. It is not on top of managing the borough, and it's actually not doing the constructive thing it could do to support our high street by introducing that 1 hour. But when it introduced 3-hour free parking on a Sunday, it was waxing lyrical about the economic benefits of doing that. And no one ever mentioned the reoccurring loss of revenue about the 3 hours on a Sunday, but apparently doing one hour during the other days is something which isn't economically driven. So, no, I won't be voting for it, and I don't know why others were predicting how members of this chamber were going to vote, because only we as individuals know that. No one has whipped us to vote one particular way or another, and I won't be voting for this budget.
Councillor Haigh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm excited. I might not always look excited, but I'm excited by a budget that backs this £25 million redevelopment of the Brentwood Centre. As alluded to by Councillor Barrett, this replaces short-term fixes with the full modernisation of the centre, including its leisure and community hub. This scheme, in my respectful opinion, quite remarkably, can be progressed without any new borrowing. Now, I'm not advancing the cause of a budget showdown with Durham County Council, but nevertheless, I doubt that there are many borough councils that could commit to a £25 million capital programme on a single item without a single penny of additional borrowing. When you look at the work that's going to be done at the Brentwood Centre, it truly is inspiring. The whole centre is going to be refurbished with a separate leisure and events entrances. There are new fitness suites, enhanced changing rooms, spa and wellness facilities, improved cafe and event space, extra studio space, 3 3G football pitches, a football changing room and club room, and a completely refurbished events hall. Significant recent progress has been made with respect to the Brentwood Centre, and we'll all be aware of the historical difficulties that there have been, but we managed to attract the English Open snooker competition to the centre last year, putting Brentwood on the map not only locally and nationally, but internationally. But unfortunately, anyone who takes a walk around the Brentwood Centre as it stands now will see something that is in serious decline. I doubt very much that those successes could be built on without this level of investment. My hope is that everyone in this borough will be able to watch or experience sport or activities in what, I think someone mentioned the word legacy. Well, if we are to leave a legacy, in my view, this centre, when it's finished, is going to be a truly awe-inspiring sporting venue of excellence. And therefore I wholly support this budget, particularly insofar as it concerns the Brentwood Centre. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quirk-Arzeneri, you may speak.
Thank you. Yeah, just to come back and just to reiterate my position in terms of the council tax increase, and I certainly won't be voting for a budget that imposes that on local residents. But I just want to pick up on what Councillor Waterfield said in terms of net zero. Maybe I can ask him a question. If Brentwood Borough Council does achieve this fantastical net zero target, by how much will the Earth's temperature drop?
Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, we've heard some wonderful sentiments from the administration about investment in our environment, in clean and green streets, in CCTV, in public safety. If you actually look at the detail of this budget, the reality is that only about half of what you're raising in council tax increase is being spent on those things which are of direct benefit to our residents in that way. Most of the rest of it is going on more internal stuff. You have some amazing, grandiose projects around investment in the Brentwood Leisure Centre, about investment in the Bay Tree Centre, about investment in the depot. You're claiming, I just heard you say, that debt will go down despite that. Yet, on page 31 of the capital paper, you're actually forecasting that the capital financing requirement in this coming year will rise from 217 million, not 192, to 249. That's quite a substantial increase in 1 year. You have grandiose projects, unfortunately not much track record of delivering them. We have seen huge capital slippage over the period since you've been in power. And frankly, in the last couple of years, we've also seen substantial slippage in terms of delivery of your projects and the basic services which our residents really need to see delivered to keep this borough in the state which it used to be, as a fantastic, wonderful place to live and work. Yeah, one can only say in the last few years we have seen tangible deterioration in the green environment. We've seen tangible deterioration in the high street. We've seen businesses leave. We have put amendments in front of you today which could have reversed that trend without busting the bank. With the money available today, you're choosing to raise taxes and not spend it on what the borough needs, but on grandiose projects instead, and there is no way I can support this budget. I look forward to March, when we may see some of the suggestions we've made this evening come back as additional spend on, proposed by yourselves, which you then may get behind. I would welcome that.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I can't vote on this budget. It's all very well, all the grandiose speeches. I think the administration backs must be covered in bruises, seeing how they try spend all evening patting each other on the back. Though I realise that the balance this balanced budget is built on the coattails of our past administration. And the way we managed the budget through those bad years, even then we was able to set some zero budgets and very low budgets during that period. Our investments are the coattails that they are producing this budget on, and our investments. And I don't believe that we should be setting a 3% rise, but taking into consideration that the administration voted down our amendments, having voted that down, there would be enough money to set a zero budget, which I'm sure they wouldn't even contemplate. Getting back to net zero, we've wasted £78,000 on biofuel. Excuse me. And I don't know how many people in this room have, I know Councillor Aspinall was going to put his hand up, who have her heat pump. How many? Not, yeah, you and me. And either you don't use it or you haven't found out that it's twice as expensive as oil in its mildest form. So keep pumping this net zero down people's throats is only costing them more money. And the populace is now beginning to realise that. You're only moving net zero to other countries by buying the stuff from them. It's absolutely ludicrous. And I should be taking my heat pump out and replacing it with oil.
Councillor Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's just focus back on Brentwood, shall we? There are specifically planning-related things in this budget. There aren't a huge number of them. We're talking about spending some money on a senior planner and a team leader, and increasing the planning capacity, reducing the reliance on the consultants, and ensuring compliance with statutory decision-making timescales. Planning is an area where any authority faces significant buffets by very powerful external forces, both against which and with which we have to work, and in order to try and deliver improvements for residents of the borough. You need resources to do that. That's one of the things, one of the many things, as we've already heard, that this budget is doing. We've heard also some very strange comments. I mean, it's always very interesting when you listen to what other people are saying and you write down notes about what they're saying. I mean, we've heard claims that, well, tacit claims, that because of the way in which this administration is running this borough, the A12 is festooned in litter and bins are overflowing. It is obviously a piece of news that would be useful for the opposition to know that the A12 was festooned in litter and bins were overflowing before this administration took over. We've also just heard a claim that apparently somehow not rising to the bait of increasing expenditure alongside the expenditure which this budget is already talking about would somehow be a way of significantly reducing expenditure enough to have no council tax increase. I don't know how that works. That's magical thinking. We've heard quite a bit of magical thinking tonight. We've also heard a claim that long overdue investment in some of the council's most significant assets seems to be vanity projects. I don't know how some of the most significant assets which this borough holds, which are used by members of the public and serve members of the public all the time, funding them properly and doing them up are vanity projects. Very strange. We've also heard a claim that this administration, quote unquote, does not have much of a track record of delivering grandiose projects. Well, anybody who's been in this council chamber for a while, and obviously I haven't been around as long as Councillor Aspinall, but I have been around for a while now, has a very clear memory of the way in which Conservative budgets tended towards the end of their period. They were highfalutin budgets stuffed full with very impressive sounding stuff about capital expenditure, which wasn't actually funded because it wasn't actually part of the budget. It was like, we need to mention this stuff because we'll make people think we're doing stuff. It wasn't actually funded. It never actually came to pass. When stuff was funded, it was funded for borrowing. We've been cutting borrowing. This is a budget in which further significant steps to save money have been achieved. Revenue has been raised, improvements have been achieved, and this is a budget of delivery.
Please conclude your point. Please.
Absolutely a budget of delivery.
Councillor Chinnery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I know we want to get out here and have a glass of wine, so I'll try and keep this short and sweet. People are struggling at the moment. I think we're grand projects here and there, but fundamentally people are struggling at the moment. I work kind of dealing with salary increases. They're so low at the moment because of employers' NI. People are struggling. Tax bans have been frozen further longer because of this incompetent Labour government on a national level. And we really, if we were in such a phenomenal state financially, we really should have had a lower increase in council tax. Maybe 1.99% if possible, maybe lower if possible, but I don't understand why we have a council tax increase of 3%, which is higher than most people's salary increases this year, and we're delivering little to nothing for it additionally. I mean, I came in here representing Hutton East today. I want lighting for footpaths. I want to help the small businesses that are the bedrock of Brentwood. And I just, it's getting to nearly 10 p.m. and I've managed to do none of that. So I'm quite annoyed. And because of that, I'll be voting against the budget. I will revert back to what Councillors Marsh and Murphy has said about going back to basics, back to the residents. I think we need to see more of that in the next municipal year. Thank you.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the points that Councillor Worsfield made earlier about this ambitious target to meet net zero by the time of the new unitaries, which I'm assuming to be 2028. Currently, that is why I cannot vote for this budget, because currently, until this council addresses Hutton Country Park, where we are not meeting with Trees for Climate or the carbon capture, that will drastically impact meeting that new target. Along with currently Hutton Country Park is not fulfilling the climate emergency declaration. Therefore, until Hutton Country Park, along with proper woodland and tree management, are addressed and included in the budget, this ambitious target cannot be met. And that's my reason why I cannot support this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Popping, Councillor Lewis, you've indicated to speak, but with time is kind of thin against us. So, very brief, please, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's really to the 151 officer, because we keep hearing about this debt repayments, and I've heard this before from the administration, and it's not been correct. And I'm just really wondering, because I keep hearing numbers we're down. Councillor Kendall said it was down to 124 million. Councillor Ridby said it's down to 192 million. All these numbers are being thrown about. Yet when you actually look on page 138, by March next year, it's going to be up to 247. So I'm getting confused now as to what the right numbers are. So I do know some of the debt's been repaid. I do know how that got repaid. But what I'm not sure now is what the number is. And where my confidence loses is if everyone's talking about it, but no one's giving the right numbers.
Easily answerable question, or should we take it offline? Yeah.
So you've got general fund debt, and then you've got HRA debt, and so some of the numbers quoted are general fund debt and exclude HRA debt, and then you get the net debt, which is after the cash that's held as well. And so that's the key thing that that was highlighted, is that net debt is a lot lower because of the cash balance. So that's showing that. Then there's the general fund isn't looking to borrow, but the HRA, there is still borrowing required within the HRA, and it's based on the capital financing requirement, which is the amount that potentially needs to be borrowed. You don't have to borrow up to that level, and we've got the reserves and the capital receipts that mean you don't have to borrow to that level. That's generally the ceiling that's set until you pay that down. So in the context, each number is correct, but it's just they're explaining something slightly different in the budget.
Sorry, Well, thank you. We've reached the threshold of this evening's meeting, so to ensure that all business is conducted tonight and in accordance with the Constitution 8.3.11, extension of the meeting after 3 hours and 15 minutes. That the meeting continues beyond the 3 hours and 15 minutes for a period of 30 minutes, after which we have urgent items that must be concluded this evening, and if we breach that 30 minutes, those items will go without debate and straight to the vote. Are all members agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. So, I stood here a little while ago comparing and contrasting the performances of the previous and the current administrations, and I think it's pretty stark. And I'm going to talk about the specific example, which I think is the most important of the projects of the current administration, and compare it and contrast the Brentwood Centre. As we know, under the previous administration, that was a public-private partnership of huge disaster, where the private partnership went bankrupt, and it's one of the biggest reasons why the Brentwood Centre is in the mess and the state that it's in, and why we are spending 25 million to put it right and fix it for the health and welfare of our residents. It's important, and that's just one of many examples, and it's the reason why I'm going to vote for a really seriously good team currently running this administration.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. So, Councillor Russell, as main opposition group leader, you have a further 10 minutes to speak prior to the leader of the council's right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll be happy to know that I won't need 10 minutes. Just to clear up a couple of things, we keep hearing that the administration building houses for the first time in 40 years. Well, I believe that Councillor Poppy was deputy leader when I cut the ribbon as mayor on the houses in Hutton. We, in fact, built the first houses in the borough in 40 years. So you want to check the facts on that one. I want to go back to my initial opening speech and just remind you that I said, I want to reflect on my decision not to contest the administration's proposal to raise council tax at this point. So it's important that I mention that, because during the interval, I got a call from someone that follows social media who said that I had supported the 3% rise, and that's not the case. It's now that I am actually talking to the budget and against the council tax rise. I will ask the council to note in the minutes that I submitted another amendment for council tax freeze, only to withdraw it at the last minute because I felt I had a certain assurances that we could work together. Alas. We stand at a crossroads today where we are asked to approve a budget that demands more from our residents while offering them less. I speak for the households in our wards who are watching their bank balances shrink as their services vanish. The reality on our streets tells a story of managed decline. Our residents see the litter and detritus, the missed bin collections, council appointments for housing repairs, lighting on housing estates that have not come on for almost a year, despite me keep on continuing to report them, jury-rigged maintenance to housing stock that never gets fixed properly. Taxation is a social contract. The public pays in and the council delivers out. When we raise the price of a failing product, we aren't just balancing a ledger, we are breaking that contract. We are signalling to the public that we have prioritised our own internal efficiencies over their daily reality. We cannot simply treat our residents as an ATM to fund a period of administrative upheaval. If we are to ask for another penny, we must first demonstrate that we have exhausted every avenue of reform, every efficiency, every shared service. To vote for this increase of 3% today, while services are visibly slipping, is to tell people we represent their struggle is a secondary to our spreadsheet. I cannot, in good conscience, support a move that asks our residents to pay a premium for a service that is currently failing them. It's time we stop managing decline and start managing our own accountability. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Kendall, secondary, you have 10 minutes to sum up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Been a member of this council for 34 years, so I've heard 34 budgets. Over that time, I remember moving many amendments as a Liberal Democrat, and I never was successful with one of them. I didn't even get the offer of them being considered at committee. I certainly didn't get the offer of them being considered maybe as part of the corporate priorities. So let's be clear. The amendments were voted down this evening, but the offer was made by several members, including Councillor Barrett, about taking certain suggestions forward in the right way, so they're fully costed, they're looked at in the round, and we come to a decision which is based on all the facts, not just stuck down here on a piece of paper. Now, let me just take a few points that different members have made, because obviously I'm doing the summing up side here. Councillor Russell at the start said he wanted to set aside party politics for the common good. I agree. Councillor Murphy said she wants more money spent on the grassroots items, and I understand that and I agree with that. I mean, Councillor Murphy and I have had dialogue. We spoke recently at one of the community events, and I listened to her concerns, and she wants to go back to, obviously, supporting her local residents. I fully understand that. Councillor Quirk said the 3% increase is a disgrace. And it's perfectly entitled to that opinion. But let's get some context here, okay? If it was 3% at Essex County Council, we're talking a substantial increase, okay? 3% here, okay, is 12 pence a week on a Band D property, okay? It's £6.49 per year, okay? Now, I'll defend that increase with residents at 12 pence a week on a Band D property for the services that we provide and the budget that we're putting together. Okay? That's my position on that. Councillor Barber said he's very disappointed with our view on the amendments. I understand that. Of course you are. You've put the amendments, you've spent time on that, and I fully respect the time and effort that you put into that. If we were dismissing them out of hand, okay, I'd fully understand what you're saying. We're not dismissing them out of hand. What we've said is we will look at them in the round and take a number of the ideas forward. We don't have every single great idea, okay? Contrary to popular belief, we haven't. Other people have got ideas, okay? I know, Councillor Murphy, in your area, you've got some ideas for your own specific area. And those should be considered in the round with others on corporate priorities. There's no problem with that. Just other points. Councillor Parker said, well, again, he's very disappointed with what we're doing. Councillor Hurst has talked about capital slippage. With respect, Councillor Hurst, I've been here many, many years. I mean, when we talk about capital slippage, I don't think the previous administration had a great record. Let's be totally honest. Now, right, now we are going to come to the vote, okay? And again, I respect everyone in terms of how they wish to vote.
But let's be very, very clear on this. If you want to vote against as opposition, okay, £110 million of capital investment, okay, in leisure and investment across the borough, on things like the Brentwood Centre and the Bay Tree, that's your choice. I understand that. If you want to vote against measures to improve street cleaning, to improve what we're doing on the CCTV side of things, to combat antisocial behaviour, if you want to do that, I respect that. That's your choice. If you want to vote against freezing car parking charges, keeping Sunday free for parking, the first half-hour parking, if you want to do that, you vote against it. That's your choice, okay? You stand by that, the same as we stood by our views on your amendments. But I would say to all of you, I'm personally, not just because I'm involved in the budget, I've been the last 4 or 5 months heavily involved in it, I'm proud of this budget. I think it is a good budget. Not just because it's from the joint administration, I think it's genuinely good for the borough. It delivers significant investment in frontline services. We've shown that tonight. Delivers a major capital programme, and it reduces the council's debt. Those are 3 things we should all be proud of. Put party politics to one side. That's good news. It's good news for our residents. We're doing all of this whilst we're maintaining a balanced financial position for the next 3 years. Now, we've listened to residents. We've talked about what's important to residents. We had a budget consultation. 573 residents responded to that. The big issues that came up was street cleansing, okay, antisocial behaviour, CCTV. We're investing in those areas. That's what people have asked us to do, and that's what we've got in this budget. Okay? There's substantial funding for new homes, regeneration schemes, leisure improvements. Very wise words from Councillor Haigh about the Brentwood Centre. 350,000 of our residents visit the Brentwood Centre every year. They're our residents. We're modernising that centre. We're doing it without extra borrowing, okay? We're doing it because of the financial investments we've made. It stacks up to invest back in the Brentwood Centre. So whatever happens in the future with LGR and everything else, this council will be investing in the Brentwood Centre and the Bay Tree Centre. Now, this budget delivers concrete improvements for our residents. Go through it line by line, and you will see that. And we have reduced council debt by 45 million. It's our council debt. It's not just the JA's council debt. It belongs to the council. We've reduced it. We've cut it down. We said we'd do that at the start. We've delivered against that. I think Councillor Barrett used the term, or someone did, every pound is being used responsibly to strengthen our communities, support local priorities, and create a Brentwood that's safer and better connected for years to come. That sums it up. So when we have all the party political stuff, if we just put that to one side, that's what we want. We want a Brentwood that's cleaner, safer, and better connected for years to come. That's what we all want. So when you're voting, sure, you've got your political positions, but think about that, because that's what the budget is about, delivering for local people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you. No, I won't take 15 minutes. Our officers, our members and the residents, the millions on there, 1 or 2 million have dropped off now. So I won't take 15 minutes. This is a brilliant budget. It is balanced. It's balanced for the next 3 years. We're spending hundreds of millions of pounds and not borrowing. It is an incredible achievement. No, I will not go back to when this administration was in charge of this council, because that's the bad old days. That's the bad old days where cars were parked on the pavements all through Brentwood, where the cobbles were falling out of the road, where the high street toilets were closed, where the car parking machinery did not work and could not be replaced, where the Brentwood Centre was being run into the ground, where legal arrangements were made with other companies outside Brentwood or arrangements within that absolutely crippled any forward thrust this council would have had. We've had to unpick all that. We're still going through some of the legal stuff that you actually signed off, which was absolutely ludicrous and tantamount to destroying this town going forward. We had a crippling legal arrangement that said that for 30 years we could not develop our own land without that other partner being part of it. Legally couldn't do it. Absolutely ludicrous. We had to get out of that. We are investing in our residents' future. Not just at the excellent response that Councillor Haig did around the Brentwood Centre, Councillor Barrett's did over the housing. My two sons had to move out of Brentwood because they couldn't afford to live here. They couldn't afford to get a mortgage in Brentwood, and they certainly couldn't afford to rent in Brentwood. But I don't want to see that happening to future generations. And 145 houses being built and commissioned this year will mean not only 145 families moving out from our housing existing lists, but when they move out, their houses become available. That's obvious. And that waiting list of young people trying to get on their foot on a housing system for the very first time will be realised. And I cannot stress the amount I am proud of just that one simple thing, let alone all the other remarkable things we're doing. The income we're generating from sorting the car parks out is incredible. Hundreds of thousands of pounds additional each year. That's simple. All the other investments we've got, we're looking at, we're investigating. In March, there will be a clearer view of what we've got, what we can spend, and what we can invest in going forward. And I really do hope that the Leader of the Opposition will understand that some of the things that you've put forward tonight will be taken into consideration. Not only have you got Councillor Barrett's assertion on that, you've got my promise on that. That a lot of those things that you've put forward that we couldn't accept as amendments to the budget will be discussed in the right place at either committee or added into our corporate priorities come March. So I commend this budget. I'm really proud of it, and I'm waiting for all those council leaders to come back to me and say our budget is better. And incidentally, people that use percentages are frightened of the reality of the figures. A 3% increase in Brentwood council tax, 12 pence. Please, that will fade into insignificance when the county council tax demand falls on the doorstep, along with the Police, Fire and Crime Commission tax increase. We have, what was the percentage, Brentwood's?
11%.
11% of that total bill. So if we do not put that up by 12 pence, our residents, when you claim we said we're not putting them, we voted for no tax increase, they will call us liars because they'll have a massive hike when that tax demand comes through. So, having said that, Mr. Mayor, I commend this budget to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Aspel. Now we move to the vote on the original recommendations, and in accordance with Local Authorities Standing Orders England, Amendment Regulations 2014, a recorded vote will be taken en bloc. Is this folks, please take the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can members please state for, against or abstain when I call your name? Councillor LaPlane.
For.
Councillor Nikki Cuthbert. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Baldock. Councillor Barber. Councillor Gareth Barrett. Councillor Tim Barrett. Councillor Chinnery. Councillor Martin Cuthbert. Councillor Davis. Councillor Fulcher. Councillor Gelderblom. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gorton. Councillor Haig. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Gerard. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Mayo. Councillor McShane. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Minot. Councillor Parker. Councillor Patel. Councillor Poppy. Councillor Pound. Councillor Quirk. Councillor Rigby. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sankey. Councillor Slade. Councillor Sanger. Councillor Worsford. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 18 for, 17 against, and 1 abstention.
Thank you. The motion is carried.
Race to the finish.
Right. Okay, thank you, councillors. We'll go to the first item 6 of the urgent business. Review of polling stations. Report begins on page 279 of the agenda, supplement 1. Mrs Mayhew, anything heard? Oh, have I missed one?
It's number 5. One of the easy, leave one to the end.
Right,
yeah, it's Jonathan's.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah.
My apologies. It's been a rather long evening. Item 5, urgent business. Council response to Secretary of State regarding structural change order, SCO questions. The report begins on page 3 of the agenda, supplement 3. Mr Stevenson, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor and members. You've got in front of you an urgent report tonight since the Secretary of State wrote to us on the 16th of January, asked us to respond to influence the draft order from a Minder 2 decision that we made in March around unitarisation of Essex, the local government reorganisation. In the report, there's a copy of the letter that was circulated to members and an appendix that shows previous statutory change orders, just for information. There's also a response in appendix of the response we've drafted for Brentwood Borough Council. The significance of this is going forward to the Secretary of State. We don't know what option the government are going to make on Essex, but they've asked us to decide what the governance arrangements would look like for those 4 business cases. So in some ways, it's going forward quite early without the Minder 2. It would be better, really, if we could respond once we know what decision is made. But we're also conscious that we don't put any representation back from Brentwood Borough Council. Potentially the order will be made without our influence. So there's a response in the paper. I'm more than happy to take any questions if anybody's got any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Stevenson. Councillor Aspinall, will you move the recommendations, please?
I also move, Mr Mayor, and I'm happy to answer any questions should there be some.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Do you have a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. We'll go to debate. Bearing in mind we've got a very limited amount of time, so if there are any questions, if you could keep them brief. Councillor Russell.
Just to put on record that whilst I personally have been against the LGR right from the very beginning, I see little point in holding up what's going on here. We need to get so whilst I'm happy to support this, it's by no means saying that I'm in favour of local government reform. Thank you.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like my leader like to place on record in the minutes of this meeting that whilst I will vote for this recommendation, that I oppose local government reform in terms of the proposal that's come forward from government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. I hope there's no one with any further questions. Councillor Aspinall, there's no further questions. Councillor Barrett, you reserve your right to speak.
Sorry to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Good. We'll now vote on recommendations on page 3 of the agenda, supplement 3. All those for? We now move to the much awaited urgent business item number 6, review of polling stations. The report begins on page 279 of the agenda, supplement 1. Mrs Mayhew, anything to add?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing else to add, but happy to take any questions.
Councillor Aspinall, will you move the recommendations, please?
I formally move, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll second it. Reserve my right to speak should it be necessary.
Okay, we now move to debate. Councillor Barber.
Just one question to Mrs Mayhew, if I may. With respect to R2, could you just tell us that delegated authority, what the scope of it is in terms of it just relating to these 2 wards, and is it indefinitely in place? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on behalf of the return officer, as it is me, the urgent arrangements would be if for some reason that we couldn't open a polling station or couldn't have that arrangement, so I'd have to make arrangements for a polling station and the election to take place. So that's those urgent temporary arrangements that would need to be arranged. Obviously, I wouldn't have an opportunity to bring that to council. It would be to make the election valid and make sure we can run the election in that ward. Thank you.
No further questions. Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Warswell, you reserve your right to speak. Councillor Aspinall. We now vote on the recommendations on page 279 of the agenda, supplement 1. All those for? Motion carried. Item number 7, urgent business. Appointment of directors to Seven Arches Investment Limited. The report begins on page 283 of the agenda, supplement 1. Mr Stevenson, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got nothing further to add. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Aspinall, you move the recommendations, please.
Formally move that recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Do you have a seconder?
Formally second, Mayor, reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Is anyone wishing to speak on the subject or any questions? Fantastic. Councillor Kendall, okay. Councillor Aspinall. We now move on the recommendations on page 283 of the agenda, supplement 1. All those for? Awesome. That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for your attendance and your patience. Please join me for refreshments in the committee room.